Well, hello everyone. I am rewatching Mushoku Tensei. I am a light novel reader, an anime watcher, a web novel reader. I finished the whole story and I'm rewatching it because it's so great. And I am joined by someone who's never seen the story at all, Kyle Entertainment.
That's not true. I've seen it all before. This is a dual rewatch.
No.
That's not true either.
It's definitely
I ain't
not.
never seen nothing. Actually, I've seen some things, but we'll talk about that in a second.
Yes.
But yes, that's what we're doing. I got dragged into this. I felt bad. EliteAri is always doing what I want. I'm never doing what he wants. This is the one
True.
thing he wants. This is his favorite thing he's ever experienced in his whole entire life. Mid
Oh boy.
shitu pedo say over here.
Jesus.
What a
Insulting my
terrible show
favorite
this
thing.
is.
Okay, in fairness, this was my favorite thing I saw last year, definitely. In terms of anime,
It's that
everything.
reason.
Yeah. Well, it
No
came out.
shot.
Well, we'll talk about Mushoku Tensei. Let's just say I finished the light novel last year.
I feel like
but-
I watched EliteAri videos on this like 3 years ago.
True, yeah, it's been. It feels like that, but it's only been a year. It's crazy. Actually, it hasn't even been a year yet for my videos because they're still in my last 365 days. So I think it's coming up to a year. But anyway, introduction. So we're covering in this video episodes 1 to 8, which coincidentally line up perfectly with volumes 1 and 2 of the light novel. And for anyone who's not actually watching along with us, it ends on a bright light engulfing Rudeus and Eris.
Yeah, ago.
Yes.
What a lie.
I think it's
what a
no, it should be slightly less.
February of 2022.
No way. Oh, I was thinking of the big Mushoku Tensei video, the popular one. True. Anyway,
as you were saying.
Yes. Rudy and Eris, they're engulfed in a bright light in an open field. That's where it ends, right? An episode called Turning Point 1, which we'll talk about, I'm sure.
I don't know who those people are. We haven't discussed those people.
True, we haven't. But before all this, we got to have a spoiler warning, which is that we're going to be talking about the first 8 episodes, but Kyle does know some stuff about some future stuff from my videos and I'm sure other stuff. So if we're going to talk about it, we'll have a big warning. But if you really don't want to know anything about the future, say even the rest of this anime and all the light novel stuff, if you want to go in completely blind and consume Mushoku Tensei that way, then I would avoid watching this because I'm sure maybe some things will slip out. But
if you had the bright idea that, episode 1 through 8, I'm going to start watching Mushoku Tensei and watch along with them, maybe that'll work, but maybe it won't. I'm definitely going to bring up spoilers at some point. I might say, spoiler warning, mute for 10 seconds or skip forward. You can do that on YouTube. But, I might just fuck up and not really give a fuck either. So that's on you, chat. Be wary. Spoilers, who gives a fuck? What are you doing? What are you, a pussy or something?
So true.
It'll be fine with them all now.
Unless Kyle decides to spoil the epilogue of the entire story, that'd be crazy.
That is true. EliteAri's first ever video about Mushoku Tensei, which I have watched all of his videos, every single one of them. I'm a pretty big fan.
Wow.
Was about the epilogue, so I vaguely remember things. Should I talk about what I vaguely remember?
No, definitely not. Oh boy.
Wait, wouldn't this be a good place to do it so I'm not tempted to bring it up later? So we could skip over the beginning.
Okay. But then everyone's gonna leave right now. Should we really? I don't know.
I don't know. You'll have this bit timestamped. It'll be a small bit at the beginning. So
okay, go ahead. Disclose what you know. Spoiler warning for everyone, all right?
What I had seen. So I had seen all of EliteAri's videos. Now, I only remember select few things. He's got this epilogue one. He's got one about Paul and Rudy at some point. Oh, I promised myself I'd never say that name out loud, and I'd say Rudeus, because Rudy sucks and it's a bad name. But we're not into what we think about the show yet. Maybe the whole show sucks. So there was one about Paul and Rudeus. There was one about the epilogue, and then there was one about 3 narrative beats and something. I can't remember what the point of the video was, but there's an evil old lady at some point that seems like the evilest old lady, but she's actually a good guy the whole time. I know that. I know that Paul, something's happening to this family. Now, this was already kind of hinted at in, I think, episode 7. But this family's getting broken up at some point. Something happens to the mum. I don't remember if she dies. But Paul and Rudy have an argument that's a different, the argument they have in episode 3 or something. EliteAri made a video about these 2 scenes. So they're going to reunite after a long while in episode 20 something. And it's going to be this scene where actually Paul is in the right this time or something. The epilogue is about somebody else getting isekai'd, and it's a lesson about why Rudeus originally gets isekai'd and why he was chosen. Or maybe it wasn't. EliteAri says something about that in that video. Besides the EliteAri videos, I also watched the content episode, the B and Nate, the best guy ever, and the former Digibro. They had a little thingy they were doing where they were reviewing anime during the time in which this was airing. So they talked about episodes 1 through 9. I remember very little from that conversation at all. All I remember, and the contextual information I knew about it was like there was some pedo stuff in it, which is all people seem to talk about with this anime. Whether it be in the Crunchyroll comments beneath them, in stream, people have warned me and said EliteAri really likes that pedo bait show.
Jesus, yeah, we'll talk about it.
And yeah, so I know, and in that, the one thing I remember from that content video was them talking about how the kid's conscious while his parents are fucking all the time. That's kind of funny. Outside of that, I don't even remember if they liked or disliked the show. They probably said it was okay, like they did with basically everything they did on content. Outside of that, do I know anything else? I look down because I'm evil at the thumbnails for future Crunchyroll videos. So I know Roxy's in the thumbnail for episode 9, or some blue-haired bitch that looks like her, and some blue-haired brother looking like. But then I can also see she's in the episode 11 thumbnail. And now I'm still scrolling down.
No, stop right there. Right? Stop.
Is the dance again? Oh, they're flashing back to that.
Oh my God.
I can't help myself. I do it for everything. You're lucky I'm not reading the little excerpts.
True, yeah.
But the excerpts do be spoiling on Crunchyroll. I didn't read any of them beforehand, but I read them afterwards, and I'm like, well, that's the whole episode. Don't even have to watch 22 minutes.
Yep.
But yeah, we'll try.
So that's all your experience. Okay. Well,
that's it.
I'm gonna give you some context
now. Welcome back, everybody.
Welcome back for everyone who just skipped all of Kyle's spoilers. So some context for Mushoku Tensei. There was a web novel that originally came out. It started in November of 2012 and ended in April of 2015. So he wrote this entire thing, which I have his name here, Rifujin na Maganote. All right, that's his name, the great author of this series. He wrote it in like 2 and a bit years. Isn't that crazy? This whole thing. It's like 26 light novels.
I don't know how long this.
In terms of web novels,
yeah,
there's 26 web novels, and season 1 of the anime covers 6 of them. And that was pretty crazy.
Okay.
And then it got adapted into a light novel series. So starting January 2014, and it finished November 2022. So recently, and the English translations aren't out yet. I think they're up to like volume 16 or something now at this point.
But you've read them in Japanese and translated them yourself or some shit.
No. So I got up to volume 14 in the light novel with English translations. Yeah, then I used the fan translations for the rest of them for the web novel. And then, yeah, when I was doing that, the thing I did was make them into audiobooks using like some Amazon voice thing, and I don't know, it was great. So I technically didn't read them. I just listened to them like a great intellectual, you know? Yeah. But light novel. Next up, the anime. January 2021 is when it started, and then it finished in December 2021. So indeed, it is a very recent anime.
So it was like, did they cut it like 12 and then pick up again a few months later?
Yep, exactly. That's why when you look it up, people are like, "Oh, is this season 1 and season 2? Is season 1A and 1B?" But I don't know. I treat it as all season 1, basically.
Why does Crunchyroll say there's 6 seasons?
Because there's other dubs and stuff, I'm sure. They do that for some reason. I don't know why. Yep.
Seems stupid. I was like, what the fuck?
I completely agree. It's ridiculous. Especially when you're a dub watcher and you have to find your dub. And sometimes it messes up because like it'll change when you're reloading and it'll like default to the sub sometimes. It's great.
You're not watching this shit dubbed, are you?
Absolutely not. I've watched some scenes of this dubbed and I'm not a fan of it. But you know what? In fairness, I usually love every dub I see. So maybe it is actually good. I don't know.
When I started episode 1, this shit auto started in the dub. I was like, well, fuck me.
Yeah.
Gotta kill myself now, not watching this shit anymore.
That sucks. That's a rip.
Wait, so you've read...
Mm-hmm.
So you watched the anime first, then you read the web novel?
So I read the light novel. Because then when the light novel ends...
read the web novel.
No. So I got up to volume 14 of the light novel, read the first 14, and then there was no English translations anymore. And the only... unofficial English translations were of the web novel. So I continued reading the web novel from with the same point in the, like where the light novel ended. I just
they follow pretty directly.
It's very identical as far as I understand. It's rewritten to be better prose and everything, and it's got like small details that are additional, and you get some bonus chapters in the light novel as well. But generally, it's the same story. There's no major, well, except for Volume 7, which is a completely new light novel original thing, which is one of the best volumes in this whole thing. So, well done for that.
Do you bring that up in that video about the mean lady?
I talk about Volume
I've heard you
26
say that
there.
before.
No.
Okay, well.
All right, let's move on though. No more spoilers. All right.
All right.
Studio Bind is the studio that made this anime, and this is their first official anime, basically. Like before this, they'd made like 2 or 3 episodes of a some rant. Like
Yeah, I
don't
looked
remember
up the
what anime.
mal while I was watching it, bro. I
Oh,
figured all this
really?
out on
Interesting.
myself.
Yeah.
Well, I
so-
saw that White Fox was in it, and then I was like, because they were all over the credits, and they were also
Hmm.
in English, so I noticed them. And then I was like, White
Sure.
Fox. So what did they make that I know? And they made like
Oh, boy.
Stone's Gate and shit. So I was like, oh yeah.
Yeah.
But
Steins Gate,
it's just like
ReZero.
some outsourcing they did for that. Yeah, ReZero or something. And then I was like, well, what did this actual studio make? And it's like, whatever. They didn't make nothing. Shit.
Yeah. So
Just
this studio
dumb
was made
pedo
specifically for adapting Mushoku Tensei, which is a very interesting thing. Like they wanted to make
shit.
instead of
Shit was
just
very
having White
popular
Fox do
beforehand.
it. What was popular?
Oh, so it's an offshoot of White Fox.
Yeah, so White Fox is the animation studio that this is an offshoot of, specifically so they could like have enough resources and stuff to fully adapt Mushoku Tensei, or at least according to some interview that I read with I think it was the director, which I would probably trust that probably.
Makes sense why they're all over the credits then.
True, but that's some context for Mushoku Tensei. There you
go. First of all these fucking things are web novels, right? Isn't this the story with Sword Art Online? It was a web novel, then a light novel. Now it's an isekai. I was going to say massacre, but I meant like major style. What did I think? Monolith? Maybe that's the word I was looking for.
Probably.
They're all like this. They're just stealing these web novel idiots. So the visual novel, not visual novel, those are video games. Light novels. I read a light novel once, EliteAri, about Annie.
True.
That's the only one I ever read. What the fuck was I just saying?
The light novels, the web novels. Sword
Art
Online
are they written by the same person? Is it just a reissue, or is somebody else writing the light novels?
I'm pretty sure it's written by the author because he's spending his time doing that. I'm pretty sure because there's eventually going to be a sequel series he's going to do, but I think he's waiting for the light novels to finish.
Oh my goodness, we're in this forever. I'm never going to be free. We got to read fucking books after this.
True. Well, don't worry. Mushoku Tensei, a very self-contained story. It has a perfect ending, and is completely done. So it'll be adapted. And
so did Naruto, bro. So did Naruto.
That's good to hear. One day I'll watch that too.
Oh, that's the trade-off. We're doing Naruto.
Oh boy.
No, we're reading Game of Thrones. EliteAri already agreed to it.
We got so many things. Actually, Devilman is next. But what do you, Kyle?
Maybe.
Kyle, let's get serious. What did you think of Mushoku Tensei?
Are we ready for this?
Yeah.
I'm sure there's other preamble stuff we got to go through.
I can give you my
spoilers.
thoughts.
What I knew beforehand. No, you idiot. That's not happening. Fuck, I definitely had a funny way. I definitely had thought about how to do this a bunch of times, but it's all gone blank. I'm getting up my notes now.
Nice.
What? How much? Because I kind of saw it a little bit of this on stream, but I was like, what a fun time to watch EliteAri. It was we were in episode 1. It's got a very interesting, and by interesting I mean, well, let's reframe this a little bit. I've actually never seen an isekai show in my life, EliteAri.
Oh, wow.
I watched the first 3 episodes of Sword Art Online. Wait, is No Game No Life in isekai? Because I watched like the first 2 episodes of that. So I put those 2 in I kind of started them. Because when I was like 15, I started like a million shows. I started Berserk, I started School Days, I started No Game No Life, I started a bunch of these shows that I watched like 3 episodes of and then said, and never consciously said fuck this shit, but they just got away from me. I think for Sword Art Online I said fuck this shit because I was annoyed that people were dying all the time. Spoiler alert for that show. So I assume most of these tropes are like played out, but the idea, the conceit of the like old dude in kid body being kid and like navigating that environment, it reminded me, it not in the literal sense, but the setup and the way it's like framed reminded me a lot of Dr. Stone. Now you haven't seen Dr. Stone, right?
No, I'll be watching it very soon though. Yeah.
Yes, because you're doing it for digest because you're a cock for Miller. Where in Dr. Stone, it's sort of a fun, like, what is similar about it? It's like a fun conceit, And
Mm.
it's like, what would you do in this scenario? It's like a question. Like you wake up and the world's all. This is the conceit of Doctor Stone. It's not too
Mm.
big of a spoiler. Everybody's frozen. One dude wakes up, and there's actually two of them. Spoiler alert. For the
Oh my
episode one,
god.
they're good friends too. My goodness, what a coincidence. Um, what a funny show Doctor Stone is. Can't believe I said it was a 10 out of 10, then dropped it after like 12 episodes. Another one that got away from me. Never mind.
Jesus.
You wake up in Doctor Stone, you're like, man, what would you do in this situation? It's very fascinating to watch somebody do it and think about what you would do. And Mushoku Tensei is very much like that, of like, everybody I think has had like either the nightmare or the fantasy, depending on what type of person you are, of like redoing your life with like all the knowledge you have now. I think this is a common like thing you think of when you're daydreaming, got nothing better to do. What if I reanimated my 8-year-old self, and how differently would I navigate high school and
Mm.
situations? And that's sort of the conceit of the show. It's kind of different because he's in a different world, etc. But it's like, what would you do, and how would you react to the things around you, and what would you notice, not being a dumb kid, but actually being an adult, etc., etc. It's a very fascinating conceit. Um, so that I think made for a very enjoyable early viewing experience that left a solid, good impression. I don't know how much more detail I want to go into us talking about specific things, but if we were to say overall thoughts, a
Mm.
fascinating conceit that's probably not fascinating because everybody's probably seen it a million times. But that was fun to watch.
Wow. Okay, that's all I wanted to hear. You enjoyed watching it. That's good. And now, response to that, I will say what probably everyone is thinking for some reason, which is that it's a very common thing to say about Mushoku Tensei that it is the grandfather of modern isekai. It's like a phrase that gets thrown around everywhere for some reason, and everyone's like, yeah, Mushoku Tensei was the one that started it all, and all these other modern things are like copying it, basically. Mushoku
Huh.
Tensei is the one that did it best. Um, Now, I
So
don't
is it
completely.
older?
That's
No,
the
you said it was
thing.
like
So it
2012.
only it came out in 2012. So I think what most people are firstly, I think a lot of people are misinterpreting it and thinking it came out earlier than it did. But when people say this genuinely, I think they're saying that a lot of the very popular modern isekai are very inspired by Mushoku Tensei, because there's like a million different isekai these days. I don't watch any. I
Yeah.
only watch like 3 or 4 of them. But to me, as far as I understand, Mushoku Tensei set up a lot of these weird tropes we see in like all of these. So that's probably what a lot
Yeah,
of people are thinking listening to this right now. So
that's
interesting you thought
interesting because
that.
I
Yeah.
felt while I was watching it, I felt like it felt
Mm,
very like aware of the overpopulation and the overcrowdedness of genre. Now that could be something the animators added in, but it felt like it knew it was like the 900th show to do all this shit.
right.
Um, but that's interesting because something that iterates on a very popular formula could have a sense of originality, just like the original could have a sense of originality. So they could connect rather than being the ones that follow the original in that sort of first wave.
Mm,
Did that make any sense?
yeah.
Okay. Um, Also, the isekai boom kind of happened like after 2012, I think, because Sword Art Online is 2011, isn't it? I'm pretty
I
sure,
have no
or it's
idea.
2012. It's one of those 2 years because it's pre-Attack on Titan and it's not 2010, so it's either
Mm,
2011 or 2012. I could look it up, but I'm not going to.
true.
So yeah, that kind of makes sense. Like isekai isn't a well, people say like I think I watched a B video about this. The first isekai is like hack dot sign or whatever, and that's like a late '90s show. But the formula doesn't get too popular until much later. It's not like there's a bunch of early 2000s isekai running around, etc.
Hmm.
Escaflowne is kind of an isekai. I watched 2 episodes of that one too. But that's one I actually want to get back to.
Right.
Though not really. There's no. Well, I guess I used to think isekai was just like a video game thing, where it's all sorted online, where you get transported into a
True.
video game world rather than a thing. Though it is like, well, I guess D&D isn't a video game, huh? But that's that we're referencing a bunch of that shit, even though I've never played it. I get those references secondhand from playing the first 2 Final Fantasy games. I know everything about thieves and clerics, etc. Except there's no
Wow.
clerics in those games, and I'm pretty
Is
sure
that
I
all
only know
D and
that.
D stuff?
I think so. Well, is cleric a World of Warcraft thing? I
I
think
got
that
no
might be,
idea.
huh? Cleric is definitely in World of Warcraft. I don't know
Isn't
if
it all
that's
like a
probably
Lord of
not
the
where
Rings
this is
thing or
coming from.
something?
I don't know. This fucking shit is all fake. I
Yeah,
hate
true.
fantasy. But yeah, that's interesting. The this Godfather shit.
Yeah.
Um, that came off me giving my initial impressions.
Yeah, okay, good. Overall thoughts. It's a great. You're saying you loved it. Um, so let's start then, I guess. So there is
All right, I
composed
got a
of
good starting point.
yeah. Go ahead. Go ahead.
Well, I guess if you're gonna do a little recap thing, how
Well,
much are
I'm
you gonna
just gonna
recap? The first
say
episode or the
I'm
first
giving
four?
everyone the nice little overview that there are two main story arcs that we cover here. So there's the Buena Village stuff with Rudy, basically as a very young child, with Paul, Zenith, Lilia, and a bunch of other people, and then we spend some time with Eris and Ghislaine and Philip and Soros and a bunch of other stuff, and those are the two main things. So yeah, what's your introduction? Go ahead.
Well, actually, I'm gonna backtrack to the Isekai thing again.
Okay.
Uh, I think this show does a good job. I don't know. I think it's its biggest flaw is that it's an isekai and that's retarded. We don't say that word
Mm,
around here.
true.
Isekais are the dumbest fucking thing I've ever heard of in my life, EliteAri. And I should be at the point now where I don't care about it, but it's like so fucking stupid and it kind of breaks everything.
Okay.
Um, what a dumb conceit. But like
Wait,
the
what do you
casual
mean?
flashbacks we get to his old life, I'm just like, why? I constantly think to myself, man, this would be so much cooler if it. And this is like the Mother's Basement critique. I don't even know he said it, but I know he said it, and I hate myself for agreeing with it. Though I kind of like Mother's Basement. Fuck Miller.
True.
Um, I'm sure that every hack fraud has said this, is what I'm trying to say. But what if this was just in a fantastical world? Wouldn't it be so much better than hacking on this modern contemporary Japanese dude into it?
Oh boy.
But it kind of works in a bunch of different ways. But so and then it kind of, I assume it goes unexplained, though that epilogue stuff maybe explains it. I can't remember. But like for it to never be addressed. Now I think I've heard people talk about slime isekai and say that like there are other characters that are isekai people in it. That's kind of
Sure.
interesting. But I think that's an iteration on things. I don't know. It's not that dumb. But I did catch myself thinking that a lot. The jury's more out than I'm on my feelings on this than I'm letting on. I was just doing it in a funny fashion.
Yep.
But it is something I think about, and it's like a clashing thing where it's like almost unbelievable to me. And it's like, no, there's no way this isekai should happen. This magic shit is cool, but this isekai shit is fake. This is plot nonsense.
That's very interesting to hear. I wonder how
But
this will develop throughout as we're watching.
Interesting. Also, I think in the introduction we should have pointed out this is the first time I think we've ever done something where it's my first time through, because we've done
True.
well, you did Vinland and it was your first time through.
Yeah.
And then Black Sails was a dual rewatch. And what the fuck else have we done?
Chainsaw
that
Man.
it?
That was my first time through.
That was your first time, yes. I'm always the daddy in the role, you know. I'm always
Yep.
the Paul over here. Actually, no, but we'll talk about that.
Yeah.
And now it's EliteAri's turn. So that's another funny dynamic. That's why you should watch this video series, chat, that we're already 10 minutes into.
True.
So isekais may be a dumb. Now I did
Very
watch that
interesting.
this what video was it? Was it by Gil Lies Here, or was it a pause and select video, or was it a Cynic Clinic video? They're all the fucking same. Defending this isekai thing and saying that it's a big thing about how much, like, the whole point is that modern life sucks and you get a second chance, and I understand all this. All right, I've seen those videos. Don't send them to me because they refute this talking point. Do you know which video I'm talking about? I'm sure I talked about it on stream at some point.
I have no idea, but I know I generally get the idea you're conveying.
Gil Lies Here.
Oh boy.
Was it this fucking person? Everyone was wrong about this isekai. I think it was. This talks about a specific isekai, but this is the video from 4 months ago. I think it actually came out on the 1st, which I think meant I counted it last year because American first and our first is different.
True.
And it's a bunch of fake bullshit, and time isn't real. EliteAri's in the daytime right now. That's fucking stupid.
Yep.
Anyways, isekais are dumb, though maybe not, Lamau. I want to say, in contradiction to that, this is not to say that I don't like the conceit that there's like two people. It's like the little Rudeus voice and then old man voice in his head. That is an interesting part. I do like that as characterization. It's just the act of getting isekai'd, I think, is literally it. Though I think I dislike whenever we flash back to his human past. Though I'm not sure. I guess it's fine.
I mean, let me comment. As the first time I watched it, I think I was very similar to you, where yeah, I hate seeing the real life boring stuff beforehand, you know? Because it's, I don't know, it's just not as fun.
Boring.
Yeah, well, to me it was, I guess. Like, it's just not as, I just want to see more of his, like, fantasy stuff. It's fun. He's, like, learning magic and all that. But, I mean, having seen the whole, like, anime, I guess I completely disagree, because, like, it is Rudeus's entire characterization basically. Like there is no Rudeus without who he is as his backstory. It's not like another isekai or another story where it's like this could have been the exact same story if you just got rid of his backstory. I think it is the conceit of his character is that he was a terrible person beforehand. Like you have to have that. You can't just be born as a baby and have him experience the same story. It's like a fundamental part of who he is. But yeah, we'll see how that shapes on as we continue watching. It'll be interesting. Maybe you'll hate it more. Maybe you'll love it. You know.
Yeah, there's more to say about that, but I think I want to save it for later.
Okay.
So I guess because we're still doing first initial impressions, so this is kind of because this is episode 1 stuff too. So whatever the fuck.
Yep.
My very initial impressions of actually watching it was that the first scene was cool and I like the sound design and stuff. And I wrote down my first note is looks very pretty. I'm pretty sure I've been consistently kind of shocked with all the modern anime I've watched and thinking that they looked very pretty.
Yes, I'm really glad to hear that.
Chainsaw Man, I guess.
True, Chainsaw Man, yeah.
Because I've definitely shit-talked what modern anime looks like constantly without watching any modern anime. And in my head, I'm definitely thinking of like 2018 stuff. I don't know if there's a single shitty CGI shot in this whole fucking show. I feel like there was one.
Yeah. Interesting.
This
is obviously a very praised anime in terms of production. Like it is a dream. Obviously, they made this studio just for this anime, so it got a lot of attention.
But people also
fantastic.
said that about Chainsaw Man, and that sucks.
Well, I completely agree with that. I think Mushoku Tensei definitely looks better than Chainsaw Man. I would even say that the production of Mushoku Tensei probably feels more consistently good quality. But I love Chainsaw Man as well. But I agree, it looks really good. They add. Like,
I know what I'm thinking of. I'm always thinking of Vinland Saga season 1 and how ugly that show is.
Sure,
but season 2 looks good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I just love how noisy it is as well. Like they add a lot of grain to it specifically. And there is a video. Let me see if anyone's interested. Which you can't watch until you've seen all of season 1. It's called "Why Is Mushoku Tensei So Grainy?" It's by Just a Fat Boy, and it's fantastic. It talks about like the grain and how I don't know if you've noticed, but in the main show, it's very grainy is the first thing, but in the flashbacks there are no grain whatsoever. It's really interesting. So watch that video. But man, it looks good.
Like
I agree.
Film grain?
Film grain, yeah, absolutely. Intentionally put by the creators to make it look.
I don't think I've noticed it one time, not once. Oh. I got no idea what you're talking about. You're talking fake right now. You made this up.
True, I did. No, I didn't. But it's one of the because I was trying to think when I first watched it, I was like, man, this looks really good. Firstly, the animation is obviously really good, and we'll get way more of that in the second part here. But yeah, just in terms of the art and stuff, it looks so good. The lighting, the flat lighting, the color palette. I don't know what it is, but to me, it's a very good looking anime. Yeah.
I'm going to bring up one part where there was bad animation in a part that everybody definitely thinks has good animation. And I've written it down for episode 7 when we get there. So we're not talking about it now.
I know what you're talking about.
Is it the beginning scene at the front?
No, that's not what I was thinking. We'll get to that when we get... No way, Kyle. You're insane. If you think... Oh, Jesus.
It's like low frame rate shit. And I know I sound like Heavenly Controller complaining about Devilman Crybaby animation looking bad because he literally doesn't get that it's squashing and stretching because that's the stylization. But that's not the stylization of Mushoku Tensei, and it's this low frame rate shit. And Eris is doing cool flips and shit, but it looks like shit, and it was bad. That's the bad animation. We didn't save it for episode 7. You coached it out of me, you prick.
That's the wildest take over. You don't like the action of Mushoku Tensei. That's going to be interesting to
There are
see what people
often
think.
times where the animation gets Sakuga. I just did the bunny ears because I'm saying that mockingly.
Yep.
And it sucks like that. And I think it's just a style thing where it's like, I just get over it's intentionally low frame rate type shit to simulate the looking good, and that's good animation. But I don't like it, so fuck you.
Cool.
I can't believe Roxy is in episode 1. What the fuck?
But anyway. This is a very fast-paced anime, that's for sure.
That's actually a comment I saw in like episode 2. Is like, I can't believe she's already at this point she's already left. Was a Crunchyroll comment.
I've never read a Crunchyroll comment in my life. I didn't even know there were comments. I know there's ratings. They're all like 4.9
4.9 out of 5. Yeah, cringe. Oh, also, I want to say for the first two episodes, I watched them when I was very tired, and I think this
Nice.
definitely affected my viewing experience. Though I still had a positive one, because there's definitely a lot of names they bring up constantly where I'm like,
Oh
I
boy.
bet this would be a better viewing experience if I was keeping track of this stuff, but I'm not. Um,
Nice.
there was a point later where I was like, I should probably be paying attention to this the mother, the red-haired mother seems to not like Rudeus. I think that was
Yep.
referenced in a previous episode. And so I actually went back to look, and yes. Clearly Paul was fucking her or something. But we'll get into that when we get into predictions. Actually, I think they
Okay.
explain that that's not the case later. Um,
True.
but um, yeah. Like we bring up the 5 classes or whatever of being strong at something, and there's
Oh,
like
we'll talk about
simple,
that. Don't
advanced,
worry. Yeah.
a bunch of shit like that, and I'm like, whatever. And there's like God and Beast and Demon or
I
something,
guess
something
one
sword,
one
something
thing I should
something.
mention at this point is that especially the anime and the light novel, I guess. Every detail to me, I think, is important. Like there's so many small details that they introduce throughout almost every one of these 8 episodes where I'm like, man, that comes back in like 15 volumes from now. Like
Yeah.
all these details you're talking about, oh, there's like the beast god tongue and all this stuff. Like there's everything is important. Even in the first episode, talking about like some location which they're like pointing out, which is like, oh, they're never going to talk
Yeah,
about
there's a
this, just
lot of
some world
locations
building or
and
something.
stuff.
Man, they like, it's crazy. So if you ever hear a small detail, be like,
I
huh, interesting.
I felt that like if this was a rewatch, the last bit of episode 8 would be like the coolest scene of all time.
Oh, it is. Yeah.
But I was kind of like, whatever, fuck this. Why are we doing plot stuff? Plot stuff
Yep.
sucks. I don't want the drama to happen. I've been dreading these whole episodes. I thought at the end of episode 4, we were finally getting to this drama plot shit. And I was like, oh, cringe. I hate this. But it's actually
Interesting.
happening at the end of episode 8, so we'll get into that. I guarantee that a thing people say about the show is you've just got to get through the first 8 episodes and then it gets good, right? EliteAri? I guarantee that's what people say. It's like a Steins Gate thing, right?
I don't think I've ever heard that before. No, I think this was like universally loved right from the beginning in terms of an anime. Or obviously it was controversial or whatever, but I think in terms of
Hmm.
production and everything, I think everyone just enjoyed it right from the beginning, is what I understand. But I also
I feel
didn't
like
watch
people
it
would think
until
those,
like I when the
yeah,
first 12 episodes were out is when I started, so there was already like half the season out. So I don't know.
interesting. Because I feel like a lot of people would say these first ones are like boring. Not me, but that's what I assumed the opinion would be, but maybe not.
Maybe. Yeah.
Um, uh, so that was my first note. It looks very pretty.
I agree.
And then I say, like Dr. Stone, what would I do in this situation? Then my next two notes are Roxy Girl is cute. Guy's an actual sex pest. Is this where we talk about this stuff, or do we?
Yeah, I think we have to. Obviously, this is a big thing about Mushoku Tensei. Everyone, quote unquote, it's controversial. Even though I would say it's not really at all. So what did you take from this, Kyle? Are you offended by this anime?
No, but I'm never going to be offended by anything because I'm just so cool and stuff. But
Right.
like, it is a disconnect you just have to do. I feel like there are zero female Mushoku Tensei fans. I feel like that's an impossibility.
Sure.
Directly
I
because of
think.
how the main character and the father is written. But girls don't like anime, right? EliteAri, they hate it. It
Right.
sucks, and they're right for hating it. The so first of all, there's like you could definitely say and make a convincing argument that the main character of Mushoku Tensei is a pedophile. You could an offending pedophile even. He's
Right.
and there's also I think that the implication is that Paul is a rapist in episode 4, which is funny and
Absolutely.
interesting.
Yep.
Okay. Um it all kind of well, first of all, it all kind of gets written off if you that's the negative view of it. By the positive and what the thorough intent I'm assuming is. Uh, a mean thing where I speak fast and say, how self-aware am I for talking about authorial intent? That's what we just did now.
Nice.
The it's supposed to be funny, Lamau. Sex stuff in anime is funny where Master Roshi touches Vidal's bum, because he's old man Lamau, which I guess doesn't apply here because he's a kid. But it's also funny when kids do it. Isidro Lamau,
Mm-hmm.
Little Krillin Lamau, literally the same character? Question mark. Both S tier characters? Question mark. We don't have to get into all that EliteAri.
Yes.
Um, it's at where do we start? At first, I was like, it's kind of bad, and I think it is affecting the show. And then I read the Crunchyroll comments, and they were so annoyingly on that side that I think I was just like annoyed out of that position. It's the Overton window thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's like I had that opinion, and now the Overton window is so far. I'm like, well, let's nudge it back a little bit, and I want to kind of be abrasive in the other end. Um, what I had heard about the show was like he was like 4 and he was hanging out with another 4-year-old and getting boners, and that's like, and that the show tried to write it off as being like, oh, it's just a natural thing. Um, but now that I think about it, that was probably just Nate defending the show by saying that, like, oh, it's his natural impulses or whatever. I don't think that's what the show is doing at all.
Yeah, not at all.
So where were we up to? Uh, it's kind of bad. So at first, like, the actually groping thing is like, I don't know. Why does it not bother me when Master Roshi does it, but it does bother me here? And by bother me, I think, I guess it affects my view of the character, I guess. It's like, oh, he's kind of not a good guy.
Right.
Which I guess could be the point, but I don't buy that it's the point. I think like Rudeus, whenever he's in an actual like big, I think that the disconnect is that the narrative treats it like it's comedy and not to be taken
Mm.
seriously. Um, Whereas it kind of should be, I guess. Um, and like whenever Rudeus is in an actual morally something situation, he almost always intuitively does like the correct thing. And the music swells and the narrative rewards him for it. Now, as I'm saying that, I did think about when he almost looked like he was considering joining the kidnappers for one line.
Mm.
Um, and his justification was like, no, the Dere is going to be in love with me if I don't give her up, so that's why I'm going to do that. But even that's kind of played off as a joke. But there are pretty bad offending things. Um, when he's
Mm-hmm.
like, the panty stealing is, I think that's the difference. I think that's so weird. Like, I don't think Master Roshi ever did that. He probably wanted to, but he never was successful in it. Um, and it's
Right.
so like weird. Like it's not even understandable to me to be horny in that regard. Though I guess it is a thing, right? People like collecting panties, but it's just like,
Sure.
is that the line, EliteAri? I guess I'm inviting you to weigh in now.
So I have
Also, they're all very young, and
I have a lot
that's
of thoughts
kind
on
of,
this, Kyle. Right.
yes. I'm
First
sure
thing,
this is first on the agenda of defending this show, so I'm
I
sure
mean,
you've
there's a lot of
reversed.
stuff that I just can't say because obviously, we're right at the beginning of the story, so I'm not going to say too much. What I would say is two things. Firstly, you have touched on the entire point of Rudeus' character. I think. He in as far as I understand, at this point in the story, um,
This is
I
the
don't.
biggest spoiler of all. The last two things you've said have,
I
I'm
think
figuring it out.
this is an
The
important thing.
narrative's clearly going to come down on it at some point, and it's going to be a core themes meme. It's going to be a big switch up, and Rudeus. And I thought that was going to happen at some point. I was like, oh, this is where he learns that it's a bad thing. I can't remember what
Interesting.
moment that was. But then they didn't go in that direction at all, and I was like, oh, maybe we're just never going to go in that direction. Um,
Interesting. I don't even know what conclusion you're coming to here. So you think he's
Well,
gonna
my
wait? What?
conclusion is that you saying that this is the point of Rudeus' character is that he's going to outgrow it and there's going to be a moment where it's addressed by the narrative. Though it could be that I'm underestimating the show and that Rudeus isn't just the bare bones good guy and he's going to be like a bad
Hmm.
guy in the end or something who's
Hmm.
raping just like Paul.
Hmm.
Though
Interesting.
this is another thing where I feel like the narrative is trying to distill it into like Lamount's comedy stuff is when like Paul is characterized not as a rapist but as a womanizer, um which
Mm-hmm.
means a womanizer can mean a variety of different things, like a person that sort of like pretends like love bombs a girl and so that he can sleep with her and then leaves her. It's like a Two and a Half Men thing of like, oh, he's the cool sleazy dude, where again it's played for jokes, and it could also mean in like a feminist context, it could mean rapist, um, or like coercive sexual assaulter if we want to use more generous language.
Mm-hmm.
But to me, that was another like, oh, we're just kind of hand waving it, and they sort of have funny family bonding stuff over like, yeah. There's also like when the where Eris's father is like, I'll deliver her tied up and use protection, and it's like,
Yep.
I guess this is all funny, Oh, another point, just on the panties point. I was like, that's kind of bad all the time. But then when Lilia or whatever her name is like, oh, I'm gonna send him something that's very special. And it was the panties. I did laugh at that part, and I
Mm.
was like, haha, sacred relic. That's a funny gag. So I'm a hypocrite. But I
True.
cut you off because you spoiled everything.
Right. Okay. I don't think it's. I mean, it's not really much of a spoiler. I think just to frame it, the way that we're.
Well,
What I was
now
going to
that shows
say.
me that
No,
what
no,
I
no,
just
no,
said
no, no,
wasn't
no,
true.
Kyle.
That's
You're
a spoil.
you're reading into this far too much. I think all I'm trying to say is that Rudeus, before he was reincarnated or whatever, is unambiguously a pretty bad person. Is what I'm trying to say, and I think the narrative is aware of that. Like all of these things where you're saying that it's trying to make light of it or whatever. I don't. I think that's just the narrative is doing that, but it's up to you whether you interpret that as the narrative endorsing it or not. And that'll depend on the context of like the rest of what we see in this story.
Yeah, this is I don't know if it's a bad person or just is bad at living life. Because obviously the
Yeah,
point is
interesting.
that these fucking weebs are all like this dude. Kind of. Probably not as extreme, but probably this is relatable. I fucking sat around and tried to make YouTube videos for 3 years. I related in various ways to his like original life.
Yeah,
Not as too extreme, etc., etc. But I don't know, outside of the womanizing, which again we're still like putting into a category of unsure how the narrative is coming down on this. I don't know if he's a bad person. He's just sort of like living a terrible life, but not morally, just for like, well, you could make philosophical arguments about how you not reaching your full potential is actually a moral,
sure.
put this into a corner. We're not talking too directly about that, but like he's not really harming anybody with his way of life, though maybe he's offending his family, but offending your family is not necessarily wrong. Put that in the corner too, EliteAri. What are you doing going on this
Yes.
tangent?
Well,
Um,
why don't we talk
I don't
about
know if
then
he's
what we
bad.
know? What do we
He's
know
just
about
bad at
Rudeus's
living.
backstory now? We know that he.
Well,
Well, I guess you tell me what you think. Go ahead.
Well, he's like a bum. He's a neat. He somehow he's fine with money because I assume his family is or his parents maybe were backing him, but then they both died in a car accident or something, and
Mm-hmm.
then he didn't show up to the funeral, which I get is not a moral indiscretion, though it would probably offend a lot of people.
Mm-hmm.
You don't have to show up to your family's funeral, Lamau. Fuck him. And then like other members of his family showed up to kick him out because they thought he was a bum. Um, Other than that, he like they beat him up and took his clothes in high school, which was, I guess that was another funny like. This has never happened in real life, Lamau. This is more so
Really,
that's sort of tied into my like isekai is
the
dumb
traumatic
bad stuff
bullying. You
because
think no one's ever been traumatically
well,
bullied?
first of all, bullying's all fake. Second of all, the not to that degree. I don't think that's like such a because I'd seen that in one of your videos, so I knew that was coming. I'd seen like him tied up naked. I assumed he
Mm-hmm.
had gotten like beaten nearly to death from your video, but then it was just he was like
Right.
hung up in Lamau. They were taking pictures, and his dick was weird or something.
Mm-hmm.
He makes mention of that later. Um, but yeah, besides, and then he has like the heroic moment at the very beginning where he saves somebody and the truck hits him, and all the Crunchyroll comments were making funny jokes about Truck Coon killing the isekai protagonist, and I wanted to kill every fucking Crunchyroll commenter. We don't
Yep.
threaten violence here on this channel, EliteAri. Why did you say that?
I would never condone anything Kyle says. Um.
I want to
Okay.
kill.
So in terms of Rudeus's backstory, I think you nailed most of it. I think the important thing that would make
Yeah, pretty
him
good.
perhaps not intentionally a bad person, but by his actions is a bad person, is the fact that for 20 years he lived in his parents' house and demanded things of everyone. We'll get more. I'm sure we'll talk about this more as we get more
There
like
was like a
information or
moment like
whatever.
that where he's like tapping on the floor or something.
Yeah,
Yeah.
he would say that he had everything he needed, and all he would have to do is like bang on the wall to get what he wanted.
Being a drain on your parents. You didn't consent to being born, EliteAri. These fucking parents
True.
shouldn't have had you. But I guess he's like really old, huh?
Yeah, he's like 37 or something.
Oh,
I think.
maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah, they said at the beginning, I think.
So let's.
Um,
I think for now, then let's leave Rudeus's like all the controversy and stuff around him. We'll leave that for now, and we'll come back to it later. Because unless you have more to talk about, because I don't want to comment more on it until we get more context, I guess. But it is
well,
interesting.
when Paul comes into it, I think we can talk about it a little bit more. But
Yeah, I
I will
suppose.
say,
Yeah, go ahead.
just briefly on this, Like when hmm, there's scene in I think it's in episode 8 where he is like him and Eris having a fairly sexual scene. Does
Mm.
that make you uncomfortable? Because obviously every comment says it makes you uncomfortable, and I'm unsure. At first, I was like,
Mm.
"Man, my fucking windows are open. My blinds are open. Rather, I gotta make this picture in picture and put it in the
Yeah.
corner." There was another moment like this. Oh, it was the Seffi's actually, or whatever her name is, Sylphie
Sylphie.
is actually a girl scene. First of all, caught it from the moment she showed up. This is clearly a
Nice. I was
girl,
gonna
and
ask.
then they
Yeah.
kept saying boy, and I was like, "Yeah, I guess maybe it's a boy." And then obviously when we get into the drama in that scene, it's like. Yeah, all right, I see where this is going. I've seen this scene before.
Mm.
Where have I seen that scene before?
I have absolutely no idea, Kyle.
There's
It
a
feels like a
mixed up
trope.
gender reveal. Yeah, well, yeah, it definitely, well, it's kind of an extension of the walking in on some, kind of that trope where it's like, oh, embarrassment, which
Yeah.
the show, to its credit, didn't handle too, uh, tropey. Like it was like, oh, she was actually like nervous around him, and then they had to figure that out. That was
Mm.
okay. We're not upset yet.
Yeah.
But yeah. So how about those scenes? Because I guess my initial instinct was, fuck, if somebody walks in now, I'm gonna fucking kill myself.
Yeah.
So I was trying to hide things. It is. I think there was a bit of uncomfortability because the first one, it's just like they're bathing, so it's not explicitly sexual. But
Yeah.
the pedophilia of this eighth episode thing, was it in the eighth episode? It was.
Yep. After his birthday.
Did this one bother you?
Yeah, I would say it is a truly when we're watching that scene with him and Eris, and he has the opportunity and he is given the like Eris is like, yeah, it's okay or whatever. Yeah, I would say it definitely bothers me, and it is the first test of us seeing Rudeus's character and seeing like, is he going to be a good person, is he going to be a bad person, what's happening in this situation. Yeah, I think it is very uncomfortable, but I think it's intentionally uncomfortable. Like, I don't think the narrative misses out on that being uncomfortable and is like playing it for
Yeah, but
comedy
I
purely
don't
for the
think
sake of comedy. Mm.
there's two layers of uncomfortability here. There's the like cringe
Okay, okay.
factor of like
There's people watching.
he's
Like, if
fucking
someone
up, and then
walked in
there's
your room,
yeah.
right? You got to explain the scene to someone. Is it possible to explain it in a way to justify you watching it? That's the first, like, that's one level, I guess, I would say, of uncomfortableness.
Yeah, EliteAri made me do it.
Yeah, sure. I think it would require a lot of explanation to try and justify this
That
to
was just
someone
a
and
funny
be
bit.
like,
Remove this entirely from your brain. You
okay,
exist in a plane independent of everybody else in the world. I think there's the layers of uncomfortability are, I can't say uncomfortability.
mm,
There's the cringe of like the relatability of it, of like, don't fuck it up. Like, this is going to be really weird if you fuck it up. Should probably have
yeah,
talked about this a little more beforehand. Communication is key.
mm-hmm,
And then there's the second, like, these two look like they're 9 years old, Lamau. Like, should either of them even be in this situation?
yeah,
Is kind of the other thing. Now, theoretically, and we're going to get to an Evangelion comparison in 2 sentences. Don't let me forget that that's where I'm
okay,
going. Theoretically, in a story, I do think that, like, if they were both 14, I think I'd be completely fine with this scene.
yeah,
Which some people would still say was like pedo shit. But like 14-year-olds I could see very conceivably being in this scenario. Being 10 and 12, I guess 12 is verging on it.
yeah.
Though
Well, I
they
guess
do have like
we,
a pubic hair scene at the beginning of the thing. I
sure, I forgot
think
about
that's what
that.
that was.
Yeah,
Where Rudeus is like, oh, I guess that means, because that's the same thing when the protection joke is in that episode too. So I was like, there's no way his little fucking kid dick is making sperm yet. Wait, do you always make sperm? It's just not
I have
fertile?
no
I don't
idea.
remember biology. I didn't pay attention to these fucking classes. You can't get someone pregnant when you're 8 years old, is my point here. And
Right.
at what point you can is probably when you get in pubic hair. So I guess that's what that scene was indicating, that it was setting up for the protection joke. But still, Rudeus looks like he's fucking 5. So this little boy dick should not be on my mind, is what I'm trying to say. Though it doesn't make me like where he's naked bathing scenes don't make me uncomfortable, right? I grew up on fucking Dragon Ball. I saw Goten, Goku, and Gohan all in a fucking. They were on a fire thing. You remember that when they were bathing in a fire barrel? That was pretty cool in that one
Jesus,
movie.
no.
You know what scene I'm talking about?
No, it's been a while. I'll
That's
have to
pretty fun.
rewatchable.
It's in a DBZA thingy, but they're all naked all the time. That doesn't matter. It's whatever. Nudity in and of itself is not weird.
Yep.
That thing in episode 8 is kind of weird.
Yeah, trying to have sex with Eris, right? It is weird. I agree.
Well,
It's weird. It's
obviously there's a
uncomfortable.
third layer that he's like 30 actually, but even removed,
Yeah.
like I don't think that's what I'm thinking of in those scenes. Um, though you definitely are. The Evangelion example is interesting because we're going to transition. This is going to be on the sex talk, and then we're going to transition into Rudeus character talk.
Mm.
Keep me on track, EliteAri. There's a moment in episode 9, and this is the most recent one that Film Buff is on before he took his fucking break. What a coward, idiot. The normies are going to overtake him, and I'm not even watching their reactions to Evangelion.
Mm.
What a fucking nightmare. In episode 9, this is the first. Well, Asuka's introduced in episode 8, as you'll remember, EliteAri, the greatest character of all time. This fucking Eris bitch is just a clone of her. You're catching on.
All right.
Which means she's my favorite character, if you haven't figured that out yet. We're not up to Eris yet. She's introduced in episode 8, and episode 9 is the first scene. She's moving in with Shinji and Misato. They're having a bunch of antics. There's a scene, very kind of similar. They're sleeping and stuff. They're made to like sleep in the same bed and stuff because they got to get their teamwork up. They're playing Dance Dance Revolution. They're trying to sync up their time so they can do this double thing on the. You've seen the fucking episode. You probably don't remember it, but that's the conceit of the episode. They got to get on the same team, and they kind of do and they kind of don't. That's the story of Evangelion's life. There's a scene in this episode of EliteAri where Misato goes out for the night, so Asuka's like, I'm not sleeping in the same bed as you. This is the impenetrable wall of Jericho, and she closes the door. It's a great gag. Evangelion's the greatest anime of all time. This is all filler detail. At some point, she goes to the bathroom and then she like sleepwalks and gets back into bed with Shinji. Oh, they're not even in the same bed. They don't have beds in Japan, right? They sleep on these mattresses, but then they're both right next to each other. She's passed out. She's in a preoccupant position. What word am I looking for here? Preoccupied? No. Provocative, maybe position. Yep. Like Shinji can see her cleavage. She's like moaning in her sleep a little bit about her. No, she actually brings up the mother at the after this bit. But she's got her mouth open, and Shinji sort of leans in to kiss her while she's sleeping, and she's looking all sexy to him, basically. But Shinji gets very close, and it's a very uncomfortable, like, Shinji, don't do that, that's very bad. And Shinji ends up not doing it when she's like says mama or something because she's got trauma about her mother and she's dreaming about it. That's the point of Asuka's character. You remember episode 23 and 24 later, EliteAri.
Sure.
The point is that in this moment, Shinji does not cross the line of being like a bad person, though he does some weird things, especially at the beginning of that movie. You remember that? He's like coming and stuff on his hand over her unconscious body after he shakes her and exposes her tit. Now that's a little bit more weird and applicable to Rudeus over here. Though she's unconscious, she never sees it, etc., etc. Is that actually morally wrong? Is jerking off over somebody unconscious actually wrong, EliteAri? If they never find out about it? I think I heard Destiny talking about that on a stream one time. Is it okay to jerk off to Instagram pics? What a philosophical debate that is. The point is, Shinji doesn't cross the line, and you're like, oh, Shinji, thank God. I can still like Shinji. He's not a bad person. Rudeus over here crosses the line repeatedly. And I think Evangelion does a very good job in that sense of being very consciously horny constantly. People call it the psychosexual fucking drama all the time. Like that's its own genre or something. It's very horny. Shinji is noticing how hot Misato is around the house with Asuka and Rei, etc., etc. Thermal expansion, Lamau. You remember that episode of EliteAri? Whereas it's handled very differently in Mushoku Tensei, where he's trying to like steal Eris's panties as soon as she's passed out, etc., etc. He does steal the other panties. The maid is onto him at the beginning because he's so horny. He's like a little baby and he's into the panties, and it's like repeatedly, it's like ugh. Now, that was supposed to be a quick point to bring up to transition into a Rudeus character discussion. Are you following me so far?
Yes.
Kind of true. Evangelion does it better in the sense of relating to the protagonist morally. Though it seems like from EliteAri's little hints and smiles that Mushoku Tensei might not be disappointing in this regard in the future. There's another thing now this is we're going a complete different direction. Don't think these things are connected. They're just connected by it's a Shinji related thing.
All right, making notes.
I recently on stream was like, Guts and Shinji are very similar because they are kind of blank slate protagonists. Where Shinji sort of has zero characterization, drive, goal, or relationships when we meet him in episode 1. So he is sort of a blank canvas for the audience to go along with. And with Guts, we kind of meet him literally as he's born, Lamau. So he is similar in this regard, though it's a little different. There's no thing. We get vague mentions of Shinji living with his teacher previously, and that he taught him the cello, and that's all the previous characterization for Shinji we get. Setting up a protagonist to have wasted their entire life, like gaming and stuff, and having no real life experience, lends Rudeus well into being another blank slate protagonist, where we can sort of. The point of the show is going to obviously be these are the experiences of life and why you should live life. Again, it's a message to these fucking neets living at home, not doing anything but watching anime, that you should go out and live in the real world, etc. Which is also what Anno said the point of Evangelion was. To connect them all back again. So with Guts, we basically watch him go through life. He has a family, loses a family, and then he sort of has to relearn how to be a normal person, how to have friends, how to his first relationship, his first falling out with friends, learning to want to have a dream in life, etc., etc. Shinji is very similar, where we see him sort of have relationships, and it's basically you introduce normal life things into the story, and this creates it's very clear in its messaging, because the character has no sort of internal conflict about their previous life, which doesn't really apply to Mushoku Tensei and isn't actually what I was trying to say. But it also allows... Fuck, that derailed me entirely. Are you following so far, EliteAri?
I think so.
You're catching on to anything I'm saying.
Yeah.
The point is that there are sort of milestones that can also act as thematic guideposts throughout the show. Initially it's like, what is Rudeus, which is also this 37-year-old man who's never lived life? What is his reaction to being a kid? And we see that. And then what is his reaction to sort of having a teacher? And then we see his reaction to having a friend his own age. And then we see his reaction to having a sibling. And then we see his reaction to getting his first job and moving away from home. And then we get his reaction of sort of having a contemporary love interest. This one isn't all cute and cuddly like Ray. This one is mean and outspoken like Asuka. And it's just sort of like these same tentpole points of like introducing these things that you will encounter if you live a normal life, and seeing the protagonist go through them, and sort of we see in the outline for this future video here, EliteAri, about blank slate protagonists and how they if a character has a lot of previous backstory, or they are somebody at the beginning and it's sort of mysterious, you can't sort of do this, because presumably, like any movie you're watching, like you don't start Iron Man is jumping into my mind for some reason. Like, you're not going to get Iron Man's first friend or first girlfriend as an experience point or a thematic point in that movie. It's not a blank slate protagonist. Are we following this part? Yeah,
it's interesting.
That's also the whole part. I don't know what else to say. Okay. It was just another trend in the thing I was thinking. And I think it is... I mean, it is a massive... it is what is happening throughout the story, I think, here. Or sort of the lens in which I'm viewing it.
Yeah.
And it's cool. I don't know.
I think it is. It's really interesting. He, viewing the protagonist as a blank slate for all these new experiences. I think what is also important is that they're not completely a blank slate. I don't remember much of Shinji. But I know Guts, he obviously suffered a lot of trauma in his upbringing. But I think similarly... Sorry, yeah.
Yeah. Well, the Guts thing is sort of undermined by starting with the Black Swordsman thing, but through the Golden Age stuff, I would say more so specifically.
Well, I would say as a kid,
obviously we see that though, right? That's part of the blank slate stuff. Though I guess it is kind of reset when he meets... Well, you start with Guts as a baby, right? So he's literally a blank slate because he's a baby.
Okay, interesting. I kind of see what you mean, but now I'm trying to think of how it relates to Rudeus. Because if we're thinking of Rudeus in his new life, I guess I would say he's a blank slate in that he stopped his development at age 12 or 14 or something. He had a life before then, but then this severe trauma cut him off, and he has forever been stuck at that point because he never went back to school. He stayed home for 20 years. He became a shut-in. He demanded things of his parents, whatever. I would say that up until from say 12, 13 onwards, he's been a blank slate in that he's done nothing, and now he has all this opportunity to actually live his life.
Yeah, I guess
Yeah,
blank slate is literally like wrong. It's just kind of the best term where it's
sure.
like fuck, where was I going with any of that? Where it's like the gut starts as a baby if we
Mm,
assume this. So that is the convenient way for Berserk to have a blank slate protagonist. Shinji's convenient way for that to happen is just for him to basically have been a nobody
yeah.
until he was 14, like literally blank slate. The Rudeus way to get there is to have him having wasted his whole life just staying indoors,
Mm.
basically, since he was 12 or whatever. Though he wasn't 12 when he was getting beaten up naked, right? So he did go back to school at some point.
Wait. What do you
Or
mean?
was that when he was 12?
What's your understanding of
You know,
his backstory? Yeah.
well, he looks pretty big and fat. I would say he looks like 17 when they beat him up, and well, I guess they don't beat him up. They just take his clothes off and make fun of his dick. Remember that part?
Yep.
Is he
I
actually 12
honestly,
there?
I honestly don't know. I think say he's 37
He's like
now. He said he's
37,
been
so
there. Yeah,
this is
I'd say
making
he's
out this
probably
is
16, 17, something like that. Yeah.
yeah.
End of high
And I think
school.
at some point he has the Minty backstory. No, I probably shouldn't say that. Where he's like,
Oh
"Oh, I
boy.
used to have like a friend that was a girl when I was younger," right? He says that. Does he say
Yeah.
that?
Yeah, he
Okay.
does. Yeah, and it's way expanded in the light novel. I don't know. Maybe we'll touch on it later in the anime. I don't remember.
Okay, interesting.
Yeah.
But that is never mind. I'm not going to say anything about Minty, but I was like, that's
Okay.
exactly what I thought of. Minty's probably not going to watch this, so we're not going to have to deal with the factor of that. But yeah,
All right.
um, it seems like these neats all have one female friend when they were younger that got away from them. That's funny.
Mm,
Um, but yeah, what was the point? Oh, we were talking about blank slates and stuff. So
yeah.
they're not literally blank. Like the point, like he can, like obviously he can, like he has like a higher level intellect than his little baby body. That's the whole conceit of the show. Um, but he doesn't like like. I guess this is switching topics again, but there is like a clever, and this is also sort of the conceit of his character, where it's like it connects him to his baby form in terms of their emotional development, where it's like
Yep.
a kid would be scared to go outside for the first time, and so is he at 38 or whatever because of his previous trauma. So it puts them on the same path so that his behavior doesn't look weird. It's sort of a
Mm,
direct parallel of like, oh, you're acting like a kid if you don't want to go outside, and you just sort of have to get over it in the same way a kid would by like sort of being forced into it a little bit. And then realizing it's really easy after you've actually done it and that it's like all mental build-up, etc. They do that at other points. Oh, because he says repeatedly he's a virgin. So when we get into those scenes too, it's like, oh, when you are sort of this age, so probably a little older than in Pedo say over here.
mm,
Um, these are also his first time experiences. So again, it matches up, and it's not going to have the people raising an eyebrow about how he might have been isekai'd. Though there are moments like that where he's not crying as a baby, etc., etc. But they
yep.
do it's a very clear like thematic thing where they're like, oh, real baby Rudeus and old dude from Japan are on the same page, even though they are literally the same person, kinda. I
Yep.
guess we haven't really talked about that juxtaposition either, and how kind of interesting, and it similarly is like theories breaking, it's in the same way the isekai conceit is, where it's like it kind of mind fucks you into thinking they're the same person, though the juxtaposition is so harsh sometimes, where I think they are different people, but they're not. They're the same person.
Who, the young
And I know
Rudeus and
that.
the old Japanese man? Is that what you're saying?
Yes, the two voices.
Who do you see as the dominant person here? Who do you think of when you think of Rudeus? Do you think of the child or do you think of
The
the old man?
kid.
Interesting.
Yeah,
Okay.
the kid.
Yep. We'll see how that develops, I guess, as we go on. If that changes at
Yeah.
all. Interesting.
I think by the end, it would be interesting if the older voice just disappears completely or something. I think by the end they will merge, or they will. There could be an interesting part where they're separated in some sort of dreamscape thing, and the Rudeus is making fun of the Japanese dude or something,
Right.
um, or even the other way around.
Okay. Interesting.
So
Wait,
yeah,
one
what
thing
the
I want to
fuck?
say, I did look up how old Rudeus is and everything. In when he died, he was 34. So I guess 20 years would make him like 14ish. When he was in high school.
I guess the 14 works.
Yep. Um.
It's kind of big.
Okay. Oh god, I've got all. Oh, I mean, he was also obviously very fat and bullied and stuff. So I guess that's why I'm a
Yeah.
big nerd. Um, God, I got so many notes from what you said. What's the most interesting stuff? Let's see. We'll talk about Rudeus. Um, we'll talk more about the light novel and stuff later. I think one important thing to point out is that the world of Mushoku Tensei is a very harsh world. It's not a fantasy like happy world or anything. We see that with I don't know, with Eris getting absolutely like curb stomped in that getting beat up scene. We see like by what Philip like the type of things he's saying about to Rudeus about Eris, and it's not a perfect world at all. So I think that frames some of Rudeus's actions interestingly because he has the motivations are kind of split where he has his desires and stuff. He has the opportunity to fail in some aspects and be forgiven, but he also has the pressures of this world, which are not always ideal in terms of morals or whatever. So it's a very interesting situation to have him in.
Yeah, because at the beginning it is very like, oh, this is sort of the perfect little environment. But with that, there's almost an obvious suspicion that like, oh, everybody in this house is going to get killed and Rudeus is going to get thrown out, etc., etc. Now, I think whatever happens to the mother has already happened in episode 7, and they were trying to tell him, or that might have been episode 8 at his birthday. Though actually, no, that's not at all what happened because we see them after that.
Yep.
And I guess they were just upset because they didn't want to tell them that they weren't coming. But I guess I'm primed to think something bad is going to happen to them because I've seen EliteAri's videos. Yes, there's because the village is like portrayed as like such a nice place, especially after he leaves for the first time. And then there's sort of the misdirect of like demons with green hair or whatever and a red thingy on their head are the most evilest of evil and be scared. But then that's also offset by the mother sort of making jokes like it's a boogeyman myth from real life. And there's clearly like you're sort of being fucked with on your expectations here. And again, all the weird stuff with Eris's father is like, is this just another meme? Or is it more serious? There's other moments. And obviously the curve stomping thing is it's probably the most like because it's right after she's introduced, and it's like, oh, it's like a immediately humbling experience for the character. So I was like, oh, this could be like maybe she's not just Asuka Lamau. But then she kind of goes back to just being Asuka after that. But yeah, we're not up to that yet.
There's also one more thing which I'm sure we can touch on, which is that when Ghislaine decapitates the 2 kidnappers and Rudy sees their dead bodies in front of him.
And he freaks out a little bit.
It's a harsh world.
Episode 5, yeah.
Yeah.
Outside of that, everything has seemed very
fantastic.
Like it is a nice word. But like yeah.
Okay.
Any other notes you had from my 15-minute diatribe?
Nothing for now. I guess the one thing I'll track for later, and just to clarify if you think this is the case. So you think the point of this story for now, or will be eventually or whatever, is that the point is that life is worth living. Something like that.
Well, it'd be pretty funny if the last page was everyone should kill themselves, exclamation point, exclamation point.
Okay,
this shit ain't
interesting.
Yeah. That's kind of based. But I understand that I am being reductive in saying it.
No, I think it's very interesting. I just want to see if this ever changes over time. What you think the focus of the story will be as we go on. So that's interesting.
Yeah, it could be subversive and interesting like that, but we ain't reading Fire Punch here. This is just some generic shitty anime that EliteAri
Very
likes.
true, very true.
My expectations are like that. I don't think it's a bad thing.
Well, every story is like.
I think definitely now it's been like dumb weeb guide to living normal life, step by step.
Okay.
Though I am very digi-bro pilled in this sense of like, I think the way she used to talk about anime is ingrained into me, where it's like, where her whole conceit was that anime is made by autistic people for autistic people to teach them basic life skills, and that's very much what I'm talking about here of like somebody's gone through these experiences and can see themselves in their audience and wants to sort of teach in a esoteric, entertaining, isekai way how to actually live life and speak to girl. But yeah.
Okay. Well, sure. All right, let's move on.
this is an improper thing for me to highlight too much potentially. Um,
Mm-hmm.
are we moving on from episode 1, or should we talk about Roxy a little bit?
Well,
Or
I want to ask you at this point, well, not even at this point. So we've talked about Rudy. We obviously get a bunch of other characters. So in this early stuff, we get Zenith and Paul, his parents. We get Lilia, the
yeah,
maid, and we get Roxy as well, and then eventually Sylphie, and then we get Aisha and Norna. There's a bunch of like family stuff here. So what do you think of these, say, first three big characters in Zenith, Paul, and Lilia, the maid? What are your impressions of these three?
oh fuck, there was something I wanted to stop you on and say beforehand, but I forgot.
Uh-oh.
Fuck, it was Roxy.
Rudy, Roxy,
Oh, just
Sylphie,
quickly,
Aisha. Yep.
him learning the magic, and I know Nate must have loved this shit when
Mm-hmm.
he's initially like reading the book and learning the magic and sort of in a meta sense trying to figure out the magic system and saying, oh, the
Mm.
book might be wrong here, and doing his little experiments thing. That was very interesting, and that was the Dr. Stone stuff of like,
Hell
what would
yeah,
you do
right.
if in a world of magic? How would you investigate and test things, etc., etc.? Should you, and his self-awareness that because he's the protagonist Lamau, he might be super powered, was kind of
Mm.
funny.
I
And
completely
he's like,
agree.
man, I'm
Rudy and
yeah,
early magic is some of my favorite stuff just in this story. Just seeing him experiment and be kind of like a scientist and try because he's born into this world and it's strange to him. He has no like preconceived notions or anything, and it just gives him the opportunity to learn all this stuff.
and
I love it so much.
him initially not knowing whether or not he should hide that he has the
Yeah.
magical power, and like the kids get sent away, and the mother being very proud, just like a stupid mother, and again that's sort of the alignment thing
Wow.
of
Yeah.
like, yeah,
Well, I guess I
um,
first give your impressions, and we'll talk about the mother. Yeah, interesting.
yeah, we'll talk about that. Oh, and just quickly, kind of talking about the parents. I think all the sexual stuff with the parents is like cute.
Yeah.
Um, I guess them constantly fucking is a little. It's like the meme moans, etc., etc. But like, there's like this one scene that sticks out so much to me where like she's gardening or something, and Paul just
Oh
is
my
being
god.
annoying and
Yes.
starts like poking her on the butt, and I'm like, oh, it's so cute.
Yeah. They're just.
And
Yeah. Yeah.
especially Rudeus noticing it, etc. It's like, oh, that's how you should do the sex stuff.
Hmm.
And it's sort of I guess, a comparison for all the bad pedo stuff in the show that we're still tentative
Yeah.
on.
That scene specifically stood
That
out
is
to me
cute.
because it is like it's a lot of this, like say episode 2, 3, whatever, all of those episodes, they all do a lot of work to reframe what we think about the parents. That scene specifically with them in the garden and like play fighting and all that, and then like trying to hide it when Rudy shows up, kind of frames them as trying to be good parents, but really they're just these two young people who happen to be like in a relationship together. In this weird
Yeah.
situation with a kid, you know. It's really interesting how it reframes what we think of them as parents. Anyway.
It's but another fascinating aspect is like even Rudeus has the joke at some point of like, oh, I'm gonna run in on them and see which funny excuse they can come up with.
Mm.
It's funny because I've never caught or even overheard or suspected my parents ever doing anything sexual
Mm.
around me. So it's like, it's very fascinating for me to be like, I wonder what's going on here. Now, I've never even seen my parents kiss, which is like a funny little thing
Mm.
for me. Like, they've never really shown any affection towards each other ever, and they do argue all the time. And I'm like, do these people just hate each other? Um, there's I think a lot of this has fucked me up very much so in sort of understanding what normal relationships like. But that's a whole other tangent for another day. Another
Mhm.
point is I've never lived with a girlfriend. I've never even really had a real girlfriend outside of silly young people stuff. All right,
Mhm.
I was inside making YouTube videos for 3 years, and even since I got a real job, we've not been the most successful EliteAri. We got
Right.
Tinder, it doesn't work. So it is sort of a cute, like, I wonder if when you live with a girl, she's just doing the fucking dishes or something, and you poke her on the butt a little. That's cute and fun and interesting and
Mm.
like, what do you call it? Like just mundane almost. And it's like, oh, that's kind of cute. On the Paul and Xena thing, and this is not about my initial impression or anything,
Mhm.
but it does increasingly become the case of like, he definitely knocked her up, and I'm pretty sure they're not the ideal couple or something. Because it's not even implied; it's outrightly stated that Paul's like fucking everybody in this show, um,
Mm.
including Sword Girl later, who we get the exposition about how they were all in like a troupe together,
Yeah.
um, etc., etc. So initially, it is sort of like, oh, it's sort of you don't suspect that Paul is actually like this competent, or my initial impression, I guess, is that like, oh, they're just like in the random, like Paul is the alpha of the village. He's the
Mm,
knight, and he sort of protects this village in the middle of nowhere. Not that he's like actually good at anything. Like he feels good now, and he's a good teacher now, but he feels like Iruka Sensei in Naruto. Of like he's the first fighter we meet, but like by episode 12, like he's gonna be outclassed by everybody, and by episode 500, like there's gonna be a moment where he tries to fight the final bad guy, and he runs up to him,
mm,
and he swings his sword, and like he just like effortlessly, it's like the perfect Cell thing when Krillin's trying to punch him, and who else
mm,
is trying to punch him? 18 and 16 are trying to punch him, and they just have no effect. And it's like, yeah, he was from the beginning. All right, that's cute.
yep.
But actually, he seems to be pretty competent overall, and he's from this noble family, and this is all very, very important to the plot, it seems.
Hmm.
Um, so that was my initial impression of like, where were you going with that? Of he's just he just seems like an aloof sort of meathead dad, I guess.
A very generic kind of character.
Yes, but it increasingly does not become the case that he's like that.
Yep.
Um, the hmm, what we're trying to transition to
Paul,
things. I
Zenith,
wanted to skip ahead
Lilia.
for a second. Paul, Zenith, yes. Lilia gets very little characterization. She's suspicious of Rudeus, which is
Hmm.
interesting. And obviously she'll get a moment later where we do get some characterization. Um, I kind of do where to jump to, where to stick to.
Go to whatever.
Um, Yeah, but I'm conflicted on different points. Obviously, we get more characterization of Paul when the mother, when we find out she's like good at magic, and it's like, oh, interesting. She's not too generic of a like doting mother type person.
Hmm.
They're both very attractive is kind of the point, I think, initially,
Yes.
and even like not Rudeus, but I guess we'll just say Rudeus. The old man is like, man, they're like, it seems like they're like the most generic like young couple settling down, having a household like, oh, perfect thingy for you to grow up in Lamau.
Mm,
They got a maid, etc. This increasingly becomes not the case, especially in episode 3, where Paul is kind of shown to be an idiot, and he's like hitting his kid and is wrong about things, etc., etc. And there's like the power fantasy kid moment of telling off your parents in the exact way you wish you
mm.
had done when you were 9 years old, because fucking your parents are so fucking stupid. And it's that was cute. That was definitely a hurrah moment. Um,
Their argument scene.
we
I
already
have a
talked about
video on.
this
Oh my goodness.
in a
Um,
video one time.
yeah, I
Yeah,
would say that scene was the scene that made me like Mushoku Tensei and be like, there's something interesting going on with this show. Um, yeah, it's really interesting because before that point, you don't really think of Paul as a really anything character at all. He's just there in the background,
yeah,
kind of. And that's the first scene where you're like, huh, he's angry. Like, why is he angry? Like, what's going on here? Like, why out of nowhere is he suddenly an important focus of this scene? Like, why are we focusing on his
yeah.
characterization instead of Rudy, who's born in this new world and has so much going on? Like, why care about Paul? Um, really interesting. Yeah.
The it increasingly sort of divulges like that. And initially, it's another thing where we're sort of introducing very basic, because obviously the story is very basic and self-contained sort of at this point. So we're
Mm-hmm.
introducing elements like, oh, the teacher with Roxy, and then Roxy leaves, and it's like, oh, he's having a goodbye. This is a moment. Um,
Yep.
and then he gets a friend. And then episode 4 happens, and it's a very and it happens immediately, and it's an extremely interesting change up to the family dynamic. And this
Mm.
is kind of why I was very disappointed initially that we were leaving and going someplace else at the end of episode 4, is when Paul is fucking the maid, and it's kind of like there's one indication in episode 3, there's one little bit of foreshadowing that I definitely caught onto, and I'm like, Paul's definitely fucking the maid, or he's gonna have a joke about fucking the maid
Mm.
or something. There was something in episode 3 that tipped me off. Um,
Mm-hmm.
oh, and another thing of the horniness done well is like, oh, the maid is obviously sexually frustrated because she hears all the fucking too,
Yeah.
and she's completely alone here. That was another good little moment, and the setup, etc. Um,
Yep.
of her like seducing Paul, and her like admitting to herself, actually, I was like the bad person in this situation. And Rudeus saved her, and then that ingratiates Rudeus to her, etc., etc.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but yeah, it is very interesting of like she's pregnant, Lamau, and seeing them all sort of deal with that situation was interesting. I guess the way it's resolved is kind of uninteresting. It's good, it's okay, but like I don't know. What an interesting dynamic to not
Mm-hmm.
really explore and just say, Lamau, everybody's happy, and Rudeus made them happy by um manipulating the situation, kind of.
Yep.
The I don't know how much, because I still have notes previously, and why did I bring that up? Oh, because we were talking about the characterization of Zenith and Paul, etc.
Yep.
Zenith forgives her. Oh, I wanted to make a Paul as a high value man joke. EliteAri, he's the true
True.
red pill dream over here, even though he's completely getting told off by everybody, and everybody's like, this guy fucking sucks.
Mm-hmm.
And everybody's like that, even when they go back to the family. Not exactly the perception the red pillars sell you. If you were to do things like this. But yeah. Is this where we talk about Paul being rapey? Literally raping, apparently. Oh, Lilia also being like his old sword buddy is interesting.
Yeah.
In like an army, and then it definitely seemed like rape by implication in the story they told. I don't remember the exact phrasing, but he
So
like
that's really interesting. So okay, we get a very brief backstory for Lilia and Paul here. In the anime, I believe they said Paul took her virginity, and I think they said assaulted her, or even maybe directly said raped her.
They do not say the word rape at all. I don't even know if they say assault.
Oh, I wonder if you're watching on Crunchyroll, right?
Yeah, I think so. Maybe assault, definitely not rape.
Whatever it is, I'm certain that Lilia is the one telling the story, and she says that he unambiguously did something bad to her, is basically the point I'm trying to convey. He assaulted her,
I
something
think it's
like that.
Rudeus recollecting Lilia telling him a story. I think that's how it's
Sure. Okay, yep. Basically, what I'm trying to say is that this is a very big point of contention in the fan base of Mushoku Tensei, because there are obviously there's the web novel, there's the light novel, and then there's another translation of the light novel, and in all three of those, they're different. Obviously, one is in Japanese, the rest are translated, and it's very ambiguous as to whether what really happened between Paul and Lilia. But the anime seems to make it a lot clearer than is actually what is portrayed in the original, say, light novel translation.
Because in the anime, I don't think it's directly, and I'd have to see what they do with Paul later, and if he gets beaten up by women and then killed for being a rapist. I assume that doesn't happen though. Because the language was definitely like, oh, contemporaneously, this is definitely assault, and he's definitely cancelled a Me Too forever. I think that the verbiage was like he deflowered her after luring her in or something. Also, the implication that like she's a maid to her rapist and new girlfriend, and also even the Zenith, if she found out like, oh, this is somebody he used to fuck in school and now she's our live-in maid, it's like, well, why would she ignore that? Why wouldn't she get another maid? Now, Zenith isn't the most jealous girl, I guess, so you could just be like, oh, she doesn't care. But like, I feel like every woman would care. And he's also fucking the sword girl all the time. And probably his brothers or uncle or whatever the fuck the other dude is, Eris's dad is to him. His wife, maybe. She doesn't like Paul. Maybe it's not because she's in. What I'm thinking is it's a Queen of Midland situation. Remember Berserk? Right. Where she was fucking him and then she's mad afterwards that she didn't choose him. Or I guess that's not what happens with the Queen of Midland. Anyway. She's mad that she didn't get married to Paul and he like spurned her and just used her for a night. That's my prediction. Though I think it might
for
not
Lilia?
Be. I definitely thought that. No, for his brothers, who's not his brother's wife.
Oh, okay.
Eris's mother.
Yeah.
I don't think that's the case. I definitely, absolutely would have bet my life that was the case the first 2 times she was on screen. He's a woman, and because I think after that is when we get the he's a womanizer line, and Rudeus is like, but he's kind of speaking my language, Lamau. But Rudeus does say he's a bad person, but then he just like self-admits that he thinks he's a bad person, or that it's funny to be a bad person when it comes to sex stuff, because it's so relatable, fellas. That's kind of the vibe I was getting.
Interesting.
But an interesting complication, especially to show the beginning of the episode. I was like, oh, that's cool.
Yeah, I think it is the second reframing of Paul, where the first one, firstly you think he's no one, then you see he's actually trying to be a parent, and then you find out that he is a pretty bad person, just generally, and it just kind of frames, like, I know after the scene where Rudeus is talking about Lilia's backstory with him, then Rudeus and him are training, and that's when he's talking about, oh, Paul is a scumbag or whatever. That scene, for me, when I'm watching it, it feels like I'm watching a different character of Paul. I'm like, man, like I'm seeing him through this different lens now, and everything he does, I'm like, man, he was at least when he was younger a bad person. But also, I went to the episode and I found a line. He says, or Rudeus says, in the end, he assaulted Lilia when she was sleeping and deflowered her. That's the context here for anyone screaming in the audience who's like, oh, they got it wrong, they got it whatever. But that's what they said. Yeah.
Okay.
Paul, I would say when he was younger at least.
The problem with that line is that like assaulted could be like it could have been said in a funny way. Like it could be like
So I guess to give you some context of what I remember from the light novel. So maybe the thing is I don't remember if they say this later or not. So I don't know. I feel like they don't say this later, so I should be okay to say it. But the context was that Lilia and I won't give details of the backstory because the backstory we get more of it. But my interpretation when I read it was that Paul used Lilia, but without assaulting her, in that she liked him more than he liked her in a way. Now that's a very... I'm not sure if that's the case. Maybe we'll get more details later, so I don't want to say too much. But that was my interpretation, I guess, when I read it, as per this particular translation. But this is the anime they have their adaptation choices, interesting.
Because I remember now. Because there's also the implications with the bully kid's mother, where it's like, oh, Paul might be fucking her too.
That's a very... I just want to, because we'll probably forget to talk about that. I think that's a really cool little piece of characterization where Rudeus is like suspecting that she is just using her son to get to Paul as an excuse to like talk to him. Really interesting.
She was kind of a cute MILF, so bravo. There was something else I wanted to say about that, but I've completely forgotten it. Yeah, imagine that. Fuck Paul. Fucking
adaptation choices. Assault. He was young. Yeah. Backstory eventually.
Oh, I guess it's just sort of it's sort of the old saying, EliteAri, that men will always cheat at any opportunity they get. So you got to like, why isn't Zenith kicking out all these women, right? He's a big dumb meathead. He's obviously gonna, given the opportunity, sleep with anything around him. I think I was gonna bring up that at some point there's a line where I think Paul in the letter to Rudeus says like, stay away from Sword Girl. I can't say a fucking G name. Yeah, whatever. Fake name.
That's a name in real life.
Girl, Sword Girl.
Yeah.
No, it's not. Fake name. Yeah, but he says to Rudeus, like, stay away from her. You can have the younger one or whatever. Which was just another, like he's openly still trying to fuck other people, even after he got in trouble for it. He didn't learn his lesson. I guess it was my point of bringing that up.
Yep.
Should we backtrack to Roxy now, or do we have more to say about them?
I think let's just backtrack. Should I at this point just give like a decent overview of what we've covered so far, like in terms of narrative? So there's Rudy's old self. Rudy's old self dies saving some high schoolers from being hit by a truck. We've covered that. Rudy is reincarnated as a baby to parents Zenith and Paul Greyrat with maid Lilia and living in a house in Buena Village. That's some context there. Rudy finds a magic book, learns he's able to cast magic easily without words. He hides his affinity for magic and keeps practicing in secret. He realizes he can use magic for longer the more he practices, stuff like that, all those experiments. Rudy begins training under tutoring from Roxy, a demon girl with blue hair. So I guess we can talk about Roxy now at this point. What do you think about Roxy?
She was cute. I like how they keep her relevant throughout the episodes, even though in all, she hasn't had that much of an impact or that much screen time. But when she shows up again, which I assume is in the next episode because the thumbnail,
right?
It's going to be really cool. And you'll be like, man, I missed her so much, even though you probably wouldn't if they hadn't been teasing you like this all the time. Outside of that, I felt something at the end of episode 2 when they said goodbye. And I was like, that's interesting that in 2 episodes it did that.
Yep.
So that was good. Outside of that, I can't remember too much of the specifics.
So I got 3 notes on Roxy here. I said Roxy is very interesting. I like Roxy a lot, what we've seen so far. Now, I think the big thing of her character right now is that she feels very inadequate as a teacher. She, like, constantly, she was like, don't call me master. She she gets easily surpassed by Rudeus pretty quickly, and she gets a little bit upset about it. Um, and there is this one really cute scene where she she goes into like this little private area after she's had like her lesson with Rudy, and she tries to do like chantless magic, and she can't do it. And she like feels like a failure. I thought that was really interesting. And another thing about it is that in the scene where they're doing the cumulonimbus stuff with all the big storm and everything, I thought what was really interesting and says a lot about her is that for a brief moment afterwards, she kind of gets upset when Rudy has surpassed her in every way, and she's like, "Oh, you didn't have to outdo what I did and everything." And then she has that for a moment. She turns around and then she turns back to Rudeus and she smiles and she like thanks him. And it's kind of like she's not like a petty person who will kind of be upset about that or feel like a sense of inferiority for the rest of her life or anything. She's kind of like happy for Rudeus at that point for being able to be good at what he's studying. So that was cool. But a really interesting piece of characterization is the fact that she's masturbating to Paul and Zenith when they're having sex. I thought that was very interesting. It frames her very differently. You don't expect her to be that kind of person, I guess, when you see her initially. And it doesn't. You don't expect that when you're seeing her throughout the rest of this like arc as well. But it's like a pin that like pins her down as like, oh, this is a very interesting thing. She is sexually, I don't know how you'd say it, not repressed, but like she's sexually experimental. That's the word. Yeah. Interesting.
It's funny because I completely forgot about that, and I definitely subconsciously put that into Lilia's character because there's a kind of a scene like that later with her.
Sure.
I wanted to. The show is very explicitly sexual like that, which is actually interesting and kind of surprising to me.
Mm-hmm.
How direct that would be with like the boner pill juice and his description of it of like you can come 10 times or something like that. It is consistently very explicitly sexual, which is interesting, especially when there isn't that much violence and it seems like it could be like a generic shonen with that shit removed of just like the most generic that sounds insulting. It's just like learn from teacher, learn to go outside. It's like baby messages with this sexual stuff. Like what are we, a show for kids or a sex show? And again, because the violence isn't really there until like the initial violence is like them throwing mud at Sylphie, and it's like, oh, well, that could be in a fucking G-rated television show. The curb stomping, probably not, however. Makes that moment a little harsher too, especially when you're slowly figuring out that the plot is a thing. We're not up to episode 5 yet. Another big thing is that Paul doesn't seem to try and fuck Roxy, and this is something I'm noticing now. Paul not a pedophile at all, I don't think. I guess he does call Sylphie cute, huh? So maybe he's got some problematic moments, but he didn't try to fuck Roxy. He's fucking all these adult women. Fuck adults, EliteAri. That's pretty good. Raping them, probably not good.
True. Absolutely.
EliteAri.
I think I agree. Paul, I guess it is a very subtle bit of characterization that he is not like Rudeus in that way. He doesn't feel repressed or anything like Rudeus probably was in his past life. He
he's truly likes women. He's fucking all these girls.
He is a toxically masculine male, yes, and even in this society, he has a reputation for being that way. It is interesting, yeah.
And this is actually interesting because she's sort of a form of stay and help, and when she first showed up, I'm like, the show's probably not going to do this. But like, a husband's definitely fucking the stay and help, just like we saw in our favorite movie of all time, The Crucible, EliteAri. Can you imagine being a fucking wife in this time period and being like, yeah, let's get like an 18-year-old to fucking stay in our house? And they gotta know what's about to happen. And
actually, that's a question. How old do you think Roxy is? I guess is another question because it's never addressed.
Now
right?
She could be 355.
Right. Sure. Yeah.
But she looks like she's about 14, maybe 15.
Okay, interesting.
You can tell me, or you just
no, it's ambiguous. They don't tell us, right? So we'll see. We'll see if they ever address. I don't remember. Yeah, or maybe
Rudeus
I do remember.
Definitely says she's like, oh, a teenage lolly. This is all good stuff. Yeah. He's saying at the beginning, but again, that could just be she's 500 and a demon. She is a demon, I guess.
Yeah, blue hair. Okay,
everybody's
small
fucking
question.
Stay and help.
Well, not everyone,
but not Roxy.
just,
even though They definitely shown the maid at that point. I guess I just wasn't thinking about her at all.
Yeah.
Because it wasn't until like episode 3 where I figured out they were fucking too. But though that wraps up all of my notes on episode 1. Looks very pretty. Was fun to watch. Dr. Stone vibes of what would I do in this situation. Roxy is cute. Guy is an actual sex pest. It was annoying me in episode 1. Incredible.
Cool.
We got through 4 points.
All right, let me go through the recap then, continuing. So we find out that Rudy's
Wait,
parents...
no, we gotta do episode 2 notes.
All right, go. Oh,
wait, did you get to the point where Roxy leaves or not?
Oh, no. Let me keep going. Let me get to that point. So we find out that Rudy's parents died in his previous life, and he didn't attend their funeral. His siblings kicked him out of his house, and that was his life situation when he saved the 2 high school kids from being hit by a truck. We find out that Rudy was traumatized by extreme bullying in high school. We get a brief flashback to him tied to a fence, naked and being shamed, with people laughing and taking photos of him, calling him limp dick. He becomes a shut-in and never leaves his house for the rest of his life.
What does limp dick mean? It just means it's soft, right?
Yeah, I think it's just like flopping around or whatever.
So why would his dick not be soft when he's tied to a fence?
You can't apply logic to bullying, all right? They're just bullying him, saying what will offend him. I don't know.
Yeah, you can. People only get bullied for logical reasons.
Oh yeah, good point. Yeah, I forgot. True. Let's move on. So,
what are they like? They slapping it, like telling him to get hard? Or
maybe
the joke that was so small. It looks like it was soft, but even then it was standing upwards, right?
I think it's one of those scenes where like people just are laughing at him to make fun of him because he's
limp dick is just a thing you say. And
if Rudy was more like rhetorically effective or something, he would probably point out the things you're saying and kind of make fun of them for thinking.
What are you want me to get hard? You homo?
Yeah, something like that. Yeah, but he's not. He's obviously been bullied a long time, and this is like the culmination of it. So yeah. We can justify. We can excuse this lame line, all right? They're just bullies. They're 14-year-old, all right? They don't have that much rhetorically effective dialogue. Okay. Roxy helps Rudy leave his home for the first time in 25 years, and he says he will forever be grateful for what she did for him. For Rudeus's 5th birthday, that's another interesting lore thing we've had come up, that they celebrate every 5 birthday, yeah. And you be at the age of 15 is when you become an adult in this world. So that's interesting. So yeah, for Rudeus' 5th birthday, he gets a sword from Paul, a book from Zenith, and a wand from Roxy. Then Rudy casts Cumulonimbus, a Saint class spell. It's the most breathtaking scene so far, is the note I put. That was. What did you think of that? Did you like those animations there, or did you think that was also too choppy for you? When he's casting that storm spell.
It was like a cloud and stuff. It was kind of cool, I guess.
It's crazy. I think that's one of the best animated things that probably came out in 2021, right? It's a good scene.
They killed the horse. Cavaggio, the horse EliteAri.
Yeah,
that's the painter from those Nerd Rider videos. Cavaggio.
Oh, really? That's great.
What a classic painter reference.
Yeah, Paul's favorite horse, right? Almost died there. Crazy.
Cavaggio painted like that one. There was that one painting where it was the dude decapitated, but it was his own head on the decapitation or something. I think that was that one.
Crazy.
Maybe that was another.
I don't know nothing about painting.
Master of Light is what the Nerd Rider video is called. We'll all watch it after this.
All right. Well, to do with I wanted to introduce the levels of spells here, right? So we get this mentioned a few times throughout, but the levels
Hold on, let me say them first. All
right, yeah, go ahead if you can remember any.
There's bad.
Okay.
There's intermediate.
Mm-hmm.
I think Saint is the 3rd, and the 5th is divine.
Okay.
And the 4th is God, but that's a sword thing, I think. How well did I do?
Really badly you did. So you said bad, intermediate, Saint, divine, God.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. It's beginner. It makes sense, right? Intermediate. You got that one right. That's the second one. Then advanced. All right. Which is we got the line that Paul is advanced in all 3 sword styles, which we'll talk about the sword styles later, maybe. And then we also get a few like weird, like not weird, a few. What do we even say? Pin down points where we get like some stats for the characters. So we get initially, Paul is like advanced in all 3 sword styles. We get that Rudy is obviously doing a Saint class spell. We get that Eris, by the end of this like 8 episodes, is advanced in the sword god style. We get that Ghislaine is a king level swordsman. So we get like a few things like that, which is always really interesting to keep track of. But yeah, beginner, intermediate, advanced, then Saint. So that's the thing that Cumulonimbus. Then King. So that's Ghislaine's sword skill. King comes after Saint.
Oh, there was 6.
Then no. Yeah, was there 6?
7.
Then
it was an odd number.
There is 7, yeah. Then there's Emperor, and then there's God, or Divine, or whatever. There's a few different translations. But Yeah, we haven't met any
You know, I was
emperor or god yet, but yeah.
well, maybe this fucking fancy dude. No, I think they said he was a king swordsman at the end or something. This fancy dude, one of the
Who?
12 or something. The fucking
Oh,
idiot in the mask that
Almanthe.
shows up at the end and is
Okay,
like,
Almanthe
"Let's
the
start the
Radiant.
shitty plot." That idiot, the one that ruined the
Sure, I
show.
actually forgot about him when I was doing
Um,
it. Yeah, we'll talk about what he. Well, we won't talk about it, but yeah, he's one of these for sure. Yeah.
Fuck, what was I? What was... Oh, it recently in Berserk, I was looking up rankings in medieval society because Bacon had explained to me for about the fifth time what a count was, I think. So I was looking these things up, and they had a
Yeah.
little chart on the Wikipedia page about how there's like I don't know, there's like noble, and then there's like one thing above that, and then it's a count, and
Hmm.
then there's like one thing above that, and then it's a king, and then emperors are above kings, EliteAri, just like in the magic system. And then
Hmm.
obviously the gods are above the emperors and stuff because you're praying to God and he's like in the clouds and shit.
Yep.
Maybe
Makes sense.
literally. I saw that floating thing in the sky or whatever. Um,
True. Wait,
but
one
yeah,
thing I want
that's
to
to
warn
point
you
out
on.
that
Don't look this up. Yeah, I don't know if you just did or whatever, but don't look it up because the wiki page for the
oh,
magic system will tell you like what level people get to. So be very careful. Um,
I'm gonna look it up right
no,
now.
no,
But
don't, do
no,
not. It's big spoilers.
this was me. Oh no, Rudeus only gets
No,
to
no, no, no.
7,
Oh
bro.
no,
Who
don't look.
cares,
Oh no,
dude?
no, no. Trust
Fighting
me,
stuff.
it's plot stuff and character stuff. Don't look it up, no matter what. Um,
The nonetheless,
yeah,
I only looked that up because I was looking up Berserk shit 3 weeks ago. All right,
nice.
calm down. But emperors above kings. I didn't think that. I thought they were like the same thing, but apparently emperors are cooler than kings. And then there's like King of Kings,
Hmm.
which is Triple H's wrestling nickname. But it's also a thing if you're in like that sort of system. Like if in the Roman Empire they might have had kings in like Egypt when they owned it or something. I guess they had pharaohs, huh? Oh my God, we're gonna do Yu-Gi-Oh one day, EliteAri. Nonetheless, emperors above kings. I'm gonna remember that because I learned that
Yes,
recently. I'm
good.
just so smart, and I'll never forget it again.
Yep.
Um,
God above the emperor.
yeah, God sucks, bros, not real.
Okay, so
Don't
let's
tell Bacon.
continue then. Don't- All right. Roxy leaves. I guess the other thing, the sword styles. There's three. There's the sword god style. The
Demon,
Oh yeah, you go ahead. Yeah, what are they? Yeah.
demon, and water or some shit. They were weird.
I mean that was pretty close. We got the sword god style, the water god style, and the north god style.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. For now, that's all we know. We know that Paul knows all three. We
The
know that
demon was a
Ghislaine.
language, EliteAri.
True,
That's
there are
where I was
also
getting it
languages.
from.
We got what are the three
And
languages? Go
beast
ahead.
language and human languages. I don't know.
So we got the human
Beast, demon,
language.
human.
We got the beast
Oh my
beast
God, it was
tongue or
great.
language or whatever. We got the demon language, and we've also got the. Oh, I don't want to get this wrong and spoil something. What do we have? The beast. Let me
There's
look
a
at my
fourth
notes.
language.
Well, that Rudy is learning three of them, right?
Yeah, something.
Beast god, battle god, and demon god. Battle god was the one I was thinking of. Yeah, interesting. All right.
Remember how Rudy was making like anime figures in his room? That was a pretty funny meta moment.
True, and using his magic, and then he sold it for 1 gold coin, and it got bought by Roxy's
Prince dude,
person.
yeah.
Crazy. Which kind of shows
Weebs
the
are
passage of
suck,
time.
and yes, the whole point of the show is that weebs are terrible and don't do anything weebs do, like buying shitty
So
anime
true.
figures.
So
Because they're
true.
all creepy fucking weird princes.
Absolutely.
I hate weeaboos.
So next up in this
Um,
recap, Roxy leaves for Sharon Kingdom. There's also a lot of places that are gonna when they're named, they're like, oh my god, that's so important. But yeah, Sharon Kingdom, giving Rudeus a pendant with her family crest. He says that he will cherish it forever. And then Roxy goes on to become a king class water mage, which we find out in like episode 7 or something. Interesting. Then
yeah.
there's so much. Have we got the Sylphie stuff yet? Rudy saves Sylphie from the bullies.
No, we're not up to that.
Okay,
I didn't do
okay.
my episode 2 notes.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
The horniness would be more interesting if it was contemplative. I already talked about Evangelion. Something the narration is confusing. Sometimes the narration is confusing, and sometimes it admits to being confusing. Even I don't know what that means. I'm quoting a line here. I think I was just tired, but there were lines where it was like, there were reference lines where it was like obviously a reference to something. Like I had to look up what dere mean. I was like, is he talking about tsunderes, etc., etc.? And then I was like, yeah, I guess that's what they mean. I was on the Reddit for a second. I did read the comment. I don't think it told me shit though.
Good.
There are other ones where he's referencing MMO shit, I think. But there were
Yeah.
other lines where it was confusing. But maybe it was just me. I was tired, man. I had
No,
to
no, no.
fucking pause and rewind a bunch.
Yeah, I remember reading the light novel. There's so many just I'm like, this is clearly a reference to something I have no context for whatsoever. It happens a lot throughout this story because obviously Rudeus is a big nerd, or at least I mean in his past life. So
Yeah.
there's a lot of things that I just have no idea. But there'll be
Like, I
some modern
think
ones later on as well. Where I'm like, oh my god, that's like a. I remember that. I know this is like
Oh,
a subtle
in his
thing.
room, he had a toy car in one of his things. That was cute, and a modern thing in
True.
the old world. That was cute. But I think he goes to call the sword girl Raiden at some point. I think
Yes.
that's
Yeah.
what that was.
Ghislaine.
But then
Yeah.
I looked up Raiden because I don't remember which fucking idiot fighter this
I did
dude
the
is from a
exact
shitty
same
fighting
thing.
game.
That's so
Yeah, and
funny.
then I was like, do they even look similar? What the fuck is this? She's not even a dumb cat girl.
Mm.
Um, Oh, it was another thing I wanted to bring up with the sexuality stuff is like the like nipple covering girl, cat girl.
Who? Oh, Ghislaine.
Doesn't bother
Yeah.
me at all. Yeah, but I know like the girl viewers probably don't like that and over
Right.
sexualization stuff, etc., etc. That was to separate that from the other stuff that did slightly bother me. But we're past that. Narration
Okay.
is confusing, Lamau. Though I don't think I had a
Yep.
moment like that after like episode 3.
Yep.
It feels like the reincarnated dude is kind of an idiot rather than me. What the fuck did I mean by this note, EliteAri?
The old
It
Rudeus.
feels like the reincarnated dude is kinda an idiot rather than me. I think this was supposed to be a joke, but I don't remember what specific moment it was supposed to be about. It's like, I'm not the idiot, he's the idiot.
Right. Right.
But man,
Maybe he was
sure it
it
was a
hit too
reference to
close to
something
home, and
else.
you were like, "I'm not the he's not as bad." Or something. I don't know. I have no idea. Some joke. I'll laugh. Very funny,
You
Kyle.
can't you can't figure things out. Then I wrote, this is EliteAri says things like this. I said time skip's good.
Nice.
Um,
This show has a
because
lot of time skips.
there was definitely a point in my life where I would have hated that. I think that is something I disliked about Sword Art Online. So here we
Mm,
are. Continual flashbacks to the real world. Well, that was just a note. Caravaggio the horse, already brought that up.
true.
Mirroring of Rudy and the narrator's issues. He's stunted development kid. We already talked about all that shit. Well, I guess those notes weren't too interesting. And episode 2 was easily the one I had the most notes about. So from here on
Nice.
out, it's maybe one line of notes.
Excellent.
I just
Okay,
jumped
then
over the
I
microphone.
guess I'll go back to the recap then. So, Rudy saves Sylphie from bullies, a green hair girl, not a boy, whose father is a half elf, and they become friends,
And
and
they're
he teaches her
poor.
magic. Yeah, they are poor. Yeah. We also there's a scene in the light novel of Sylphie's dad and him talking about like what Paul tells him about Sylphie. What Paul tells him about Rudy, and that was a really interesting thing not to include. Like that has a little bit of characterization for Paul, which I talk about in my video a little bit. So yeah, there's a light
So
novel
Paul was
difference.
like visiting their house.
I think it's like because Paul gets around the village as like a helper or whatever.
Yeah, he was fucking the wife.
Yeah, and
I
that
knew
too.
it. He
Yeah,
gets
true.
around the village.
But he also helps around the village. I guess that could be a way of helping. I don't know. Anyway, they know
Helps
each
the
other.
wives
They've
out,
had
Lamau.
conversations. And that was a big part of basically Paul would tell him about how Paul feels very inadequate as a parent because Rudy is so smart and like so capable on his own that Paul feels like he can't teach him anything basically. And that kind of
Yeah,
explains why
that
he
is.
kind of lashed out at Rudy in that fight because he wanted to be the parent. He wanted to feel like he was kind of glad that Rudy did something bad because now he could finally have a chance to prove himself as a good parent.
Yeah,
But then he failed, obviously. Yeah, it's like a big rude Paul stuff. I love it.
Yeah, we get that. That comes across in his internal monologues he has.
That's good to hear. Okay, yeah.
Fuck, I had something else to say, but I forgot. Did you hear my whispering just now?
Yeah, I did. Yeah.
Okay. Fuck.
Sylphie's
Sophie fucking
parents.
the wives. Elf. Oh, at some point I thought it was going to be like a thing where they found out that she had green hair and the parents would like want to kill the kid or something, and that's how
Right.
drama would unfold with Rudeus. Didn't happen.
Yep.
Um,
Yeah, they're not racist.
she
But
might
if she
be
had
an
a red
adopted
gem,
actual
then
demon.
yeah,
I think
sure.
that red gem is going to appear at some point, and it's going to be we have to defend the evil people from the prejudice people or something.
But
Because
what
their
what'd you say?
parents don't
Defend
have
them?
green hair.
Okay.
At some point, it's going to be revealed that she actually is a demon girl, and
Right.
Rudeus will actually have to defend her from everybody
Okay.
trying to
Okay.
kill her.
Okay.
Um,
These
probably
predictions are
not.
interesting. Okay.
The parents don't have green hair, so she might be adopted or something. They found her on the side of the road. It's actually a demon, Lamau.
Right.
Um, I can see that. Sylph is like a wind spirit. I know that from Berserk because what weapon? Oh, Serpico's cloak that he flies with sometimes. God, Serpico is so fucking lame. I hate him.
True.
Has sylphs on it. Isidro's fire dagger with the little geckos is fucking sick, bro. Isidro's great.
Okay. Should I keep going with the
Where we
recap?
up to?
So,
Yeah,
okay.
don't move to episode 4.
I don't even know. Okay, Paul gets angry at Rudeus over a misunderstanding and they have a big argument. Rudy pulls down Sylphie's pants and finds out she's a girl. He feels terrible and Paul gives him advice to get him back on his feet. Paul and Sylphie make up. I think this is episode 4. Paul gets Lilia pregnant, or is that episode 3? I don't know.
That's episode 4.
Okay, go ahead. Episode 4. I'll give a recap, I guess. Paul gets Lilia pregnant and they have an emergency family meeting. Rudeus convinces Zenith that Paul forced Lilia to have sex with him and tricks Zenith to let Lilia stay and by extension saves her life.
Oh yeah, she had to be like, oh, Rudeus had to be like, he's just a rapist. She didn't do anything wrong. So we can stay as a happy family. It's just kind of funny, insane.
Yeah. What's your grand note?
Okay. Well, first of all, we didn't do episode 3. And the episode 4 one has already been covered. It just says Paul be raping ? The episode 3 one was fuck, there was something I wanted to say that wasn't a note because all my notes are dumb and just one-liners and funny. What was at the end of episode 3? The awkward scene. Oh, it was interesting because obviously at the beginning of the episode it's like, Rudeus can't learn anything from Paul. He fucking sucks. And at the end, obviously Rudeus can learn how to sort of manipulate women, I guess, from Paul because he has all the success with the bitches, as we call them, and Rudeus has none. So there are some things, and you do find that sometimes where you're like, oh, this person's fucking stupid in real life, and you're like, I have to teach them everything about everything, and then out of nowhere it'll be like a thing that you don't know anything about, and they'll know something about it, and it'll change your perception of them a little bit. I've definitely had moments like that in real life. Usually in like basic things. I don't think it was ever with women because I'm just such an expert at EliteAri, despite what I said earlier. Fuck, I'm trying to think of an example. Doesn't matter. I think everybody gets the point. But yes. So yeah, that was a cute little. Paul does have some value. He's not an idiot in every sense. Though even the ways he's not an idiot in, potentially problematic, raping and stuff.
True.
But to go to my notes now. The first note is, imagine ruining a book back in the old days, bro. I'd kill myself.
Jesus.
You know how you always get like a new book and you're like holding it and you're like 3 seconds like you open it and the fucking thing in like the spine creases and you're like, man, this book will never be the same. It sucks. And you smell it and it's got that new book smell and you're like, oh, this is fucking sexy, bro. And then you're like, oh, it's going to lose that. But then it gets the old book smell, and that's kind of good too. But besides that, especially when I was a dumb fucking kid, I'd get like these Pokemon manuals, and I'd get a new one for the new game, and I'd be like, oh, this is the greatest. Oh, this is life itself.
Yep.
And then just because you're a dumb little kid and you're like, oh, I'm going to be so careful with this book, you just rip a fucking page somehow. And it's like, oh, I hate myself. But I could just go and buy a new one of those fucking books. These are mass produced. Back in these old days, EliteAri, these books that you got to handwrite them and shit.
Crazy.
Oh my goodness. Imagine
no printing press.
Oh, you would want to kill yourself. You would have to. Morally,
you just wouldn't want to give it away. You just keep all the books. Yeah.
Yeah. But like, what if you spilt water on it or something?
Oh, God.
I do that all the time.
That knowledge will be lost forever.
If you sneezed on it and if you fucked it up forever.
Yeah.
Oh, terrible. Terrible. Still no traditional OP, which is actually something I haven't thought about. The greatest OP in anime history. They do like this little like 15-second chime or something. It's probably like 30 seconds. And they just show like establishing shots of the environment of the episode. It's the greatest thing I've ever seen.
I also really like it.
It'll just be snowing or it'll be a shot of a fucking like a little cart tipped over or something. I'm like, yeah, this is fucking sick. And it's like, it actually does do like establishing work for the episode of like, especially when we're sort of changing environments or seasons.
Yep.
and they feel like OP shots. It's just like establishing shots of like a thing and a person kind of doing a thing.
Yep.
So it's clever in like it's diegetic openingness. It's fucking
Oh,
great.
fancy. Yeah, I completely agree. One of the best things about Mushoku Tensei's direction is the choice to not have an opening, um, and to use it like
But
in
it has
a
the logo too. Yeah, it's
yeah,
cool.
true. It does have the logo, and it is the same song every time.
ED is
So
pretty cool too.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
I wonder
ED
if
is
they'll
interesting.
change that in season 2. Nah, they can't.
You mean
That'd be
like
some hack shit.
season 2, like coming up in July, or
Yeah, like the
okay,
chime.
interesting.
Well, I assume they didn't
I
change
do
it from what
wonder.
you just
Yeah.
said in the second call. Like, oh, it's going to be a different chime now. No, that would suck.
Mm,
Uh, they better not change it. Don't be a hack like all these other shitty anime. Um, my next note was parents trying to fuck, which I assume was the bum poking. And then
yep.
my last note is it's the scene from the RE video! Exclamation point! Exclamation point!
True. Don't watch that
Now or
video
never.
yet, alright? There's some spoilers still for stuff. Um,
Yeah.
but
I
yeah,
recently rewatched the epilogue one, but I don't remember anything from it. So
good. Okay.
no, actually, there's like a something and something,
All
and
right.
I
No,
guess we're not
no, we
talking
don't need to
about
spoil it. I got 2 more recap points then. So I guess this is for episode 4. We get the pregnant things. We get Norn and Aisha are born. Rudy says he's going to be a cool big brother who's looked up to, and then Sylphie becomes increasingly dependent on Rudy, so Paul sends Rudy to Roa for 5 years for Sylphie's sake. So you know what, he is pretty competent after all. So any thoughts on
Yeah.
this episode?
There was a cool. No, I don't have any notes, but
Yep.
there was a cool scene where Rudeus is asking for them to basically pay for Sylphie's thing so they can go off to school together or whatever.
Yep.
And I think it did a good. And it's actually because I find myself in these situations. Actually, I don't know if I ever actually have done that, but like because he's like actually 30, and he's like asking your parents for something when you're not a kid anymore is like a
Mm.
weird situation. And I thought it very well captured that feeling.
Mm-hmm.
Especially of like how like you have to be when they sort of say no and it's like a calm thing. It's not like a freaking out like a
Mm.
dumb little kid thing. I don't know when was the last time I asked my parents for something. I honestly can't think of an example. So I don't know
Mm.
why I felt that like that was such a relatable thing, but I was like, oh, that was a well done scene.
Yep. True.
Yeah, good.
Okay, I guess with the parents, just stemming off that, I think his relationship with Paul and Zenith is really interesting because firstly they are younger than him, and yeah, like what do you think of their dynamic? How do you think Rudy sees them? Do you think he sees them as parents? Do you think he just sees them as people in his house? Like what's it's an interesting dynamic, and what do you think about it basically?
To bring this back to sex things again, he says that he doesn't get turned on by sucking Zenith's tits because she's his
True.
mom, which was weird.
Mm-hmm.
Which would seem to indicate that he does you in some motherly sense.
Mm.
She's kind of cute, bro. I don't know about all that.
Yeah.
Um,
Okay.
again, it's sort of like it's part of the thing where I don't even know how I feel about it as a conceit of like the character actually being 2 people, though it's not. It's 1 person, but it's 2 people, but it's 1 person.
Mm-hmm.
Like when I think of the kid Rudeus, I think of it as like the most traditional parent relationship in the world.
Yep.
But then you don't immediately after you have that thought. So it is like this infinite conflict. And I don't know, because I assume at some point we'll get some sort of narrative. I assume nobody will ever find out that he got isekai'd because they haven't like teased it at all that it is a mystery to ever be
Right.
uncovered. And I don't know, unless we are teleporting back to Japan with our powers to change something there because the evil of the world resides there or something. There's
Mm.
like no reason for us to ever, like, there's no plot reason for anybody to ever find out, except to relate to him because he's so depressed because he can't go back. But he's not depressed at all about not going back, and that's kind of, again, part of the conceit.
Right.
Um,
Okay. No comment
so what
from
was the
me.
point of bringing that
Interesting.
up?
Yeah.
It was
Well,
about
just
the
the
how
interesting
does this relate to
dynamic.
the parent's perception? Oh, and the interesting dynamic of him being 2 people, not being 2 people, etc., etc. Fuck, there was something like I was getting to a point. Um,
I have no idea. I'm sure it'll come up while we're still talking about something else.
Perception. Mother, father, does he view them? They're actually younger. I can't remember. I'm
Japan.
completely stumped.
All right, well, let's keep going. So I guess that's all the recap stuff. I have a bunch of miscellaneous notes for this section, like which I can blast through now. Talk about the cool directing. Oh, did you? I'm sure you didn't notice this, but in when Paul goes to kiss Rudy when he's like a baby, first reincarnated, Rudy says "kimochi warui," and I was like, oh my god, that's that thing that Kyle likes.
He does. I did notice.
You did notice? Hell yeah! All right, good job.
Yeah.
Oh boy, no, we're gonna get claimed, Kyle. Stop. I have incredible. Jesus, I have incredible nostalgia for these early times with the Happy Families. Basically, what I'm saying. It's really interesting to see it. Like before, it's basically Rudy and his two parents. There's no siblings, nothing. It's just him living this like cute little family life. And I have a lot of nostalgia when I'm watching this. And I teared up like a few points. I'm not gonna say which one specifically, but there's like a lot of very emotional
Right,
stuff
we're
early
never
on.
gonna get anything good ever again in this show because the first 4 episodes were the only good part, and EliteAri
No,
just
I'm
said
crying
that
from
he
the
got
nostalgia and all that.
nostalgic, and we're never going back.
True, the happy times never again.
Spoiler.
Yeah,
Shitty
sorry.
plot about the start. Boo.
True, I hate plots. All right. What's next? Oh, this is something I don't know if we'll track how this goes, but something that I find interesting about Mushoku Tensei is how you hear the same story from multiple perspectives. And we'll talk about this more next time or whatever in future times. But for so far, there's this one story that we've heard about the human demon war and Laplace and all that, and we've heard that a few times now. Like we initially heard it from Roxy explaining it to Rudeus and talking about it, and then we hear it again later from Ghislaine. It's just interesting how we got different perspectives on the same story.
I definitely recognize that I think they were doing the thing where people were saying different things about what happened, but I also wasn't paying enough attention to track what the differences were.
Yeah. Okay. Interesting.
So you should reiterate them to me, like right now, EliteAri. What did Roxy
No, I think
say about
we'll just. I think they're similar enough
because it's going to give it away. Because if Film Buff right now would have them both in his head and he would be predicting exactly what happens, but you don't want to do it with me right now, EliteAri.
No.
Because it serves your own.
We'll get a lot of information about everything. We don't need to talk about all this right now.
So let me reiterate what it was. So there's Laputus.
Laplace.
And there's Peratatis.
Perugius.
Laputus was a place, or it was a bad guy.
So demon god
like
Laplace.
Years ago or something. Yeah. So he's some demon god. So he looks like fucking Roxy over here. Big scary demon, apparently.
Right.
I'm sure there's some sort of subversion there. And then him and his 12 followers. Now,
I
was recently watching
Perugius's 12 followers, all right?
Yeah, Perugius, and they beat him up, right? I skipped over that part because I assumed when I said Perugius or whatever the fuck. Now, obviously, we see him, his face is all grayed out because he's cool, and we're not going to see him for a bunch of episodes. And we're probably going to meet his 12 little losers beforehand. Though actually, probably not 12. We're definitely meeting the sword idiot. He's also got a mask on. Is it Rudeus time traveling? Is that why we're covering his face, just like Chainsaw Man? Who knows, etc., etc. A bunch of mystery. Again, on the rewatch, you'd be freaking the fuck out because it's like the beginning of Naruto Shippuden when Pain's in the fucking and he's doing the thing, but you don't know it's him, and you can just tell by the eyes if you've seen it before, and you're like, oh, this is so cool. Because the Akatsuki will appear as holograms, and they're all darked out. EliteAri, it's really cool. And you're like, man, what does this dude look like? He's really big. What does this dude look like? He's really small. What does this dude look like? What's that weapon he's got there?
So you're saying Almanthi? Okay, interesting. That's the guy.
Well,
that's the 12.
I was more so referring to Paragius.
Okay.
But yes, also there's the Stalk and the Mask.
Yep.
What the fuck was I talking about before that? Oh, you're reiterating what happened in the 12. The 12. Super iPatch Wolf recently did this video about that Fear and Hunger video game, and then I was watching other lore videos about it today because I was vaguely interested in it. And they were talking about something and the 12 followers overthrowing something. And then I'm pretty sure that's a Jesus thing, right? Jesus had 12 followers or something. So there's like one big dude with 12 followers. That's like a thing in like, what do you call real life lore? Spirituality or religion or something or myth?
Yeah,
it's like 12.
Yeah.
Because like 13 is like an unlucky number. So you got to get Bilbo 2, which makes it 14 for The Hobbit. You remember The Hobbit?
I don't remember.
You skip 13. Yeah. Remember the reason why they wanted Bilbo was that they thought 13 was an unlucky number of dwarfs to go out looking.
Classic.
And in my 5th grade class, that's when I first learnt that 13 was an unlucky number because we did a like 20-minute segment in one lesson giving context to that line because that's pretty smart, bro, and that's what you do in English class.
Mm-hmm.
Though I definitely think when I was watching WWE Royal Rumbles when I was younger, then whenever 13 would come out, they would say, "Is it going to be unlucky number 13 or lucky number 13 for Carlito as he runs to the ring?" Uh, was Booker T ever a 13 in a
I
Royal Rumble
don't.
for EliteAri to relate to this story?
I.
He was very close in the 2006 Royal Rumble, and I
It's
think he
probably
was
the one I
10 in the
saw.
2005. The fact that I
Nice.
remember that is insane.
All right, let's move on. All right. Well, actually, I only have
12
one note
followers
left.
EliteAri. It was interesting.
True. Okay, well, I forgot
Yeah, one
actually.
of
Yeah, so
them. Yeah,
Demon, God Laplace, Perugius, and the three
that's right. I was
heroes.
reiterating that story.
So there were three heroes that beat Laplace. It was Perugius and his 12 people, as well as two other heroes.
Yeah, but they died or something, right? Or not?
You got to tell me. I don't remember the details. I mean, I
They
do.
definitely did it then.
I just want to say anything because I don't want to spoil whatever.
I would be so mad if you spoiled the shitty Lapias or whatever the fuck it is.
Right, true.
Now tell me if Paul's fucking the MILF. That's what I'm actually
Well,
concerned.
usually a
Don't
good bet would
spoil
be
that.
yes. I'm not gonna say though, but yeah.
Yeah.
Zenith. One note on Zenith. That's all I got. She
Hold on,
used
I
to.
got one
Yeah.
thing beforehand.
Go ahead.
Generic brown-haired anime girls are cute. Like that MILF was cute, and then there's
True.
like generic girls that show up later and they want to like court Rudeus after he does a cool dance, and I was like, they're cute, and this dumb fucking Eris girl with her red hair.
Damn.
So generic, and I've realized this increasingly. You know how you have a type EliteAri, and you're like, man, blondes are really hot, but you're never gonna date a blonde in your life. It's all these fucking evil brunette girls, and it always is EliteAri. So that's my point here. It's
Right.
brunette shit. You want to fight it? You want to date something interesting? What if a redhead girl? My goodness, it's just never gonna
That'd be
happen
crazy.
for whatever reason. It will never happen. They will all be brunettes
statistically.
for the rest of your life. I don't know why. It's a curse, EliteAri.
Because there's like 1 in 2,000 people are redheads or something, right? Probably less than that. Crazy.
Yeah, but
I guess I can dye their hair.
blonde
Right?
girls are everywhere, but you'll
True.
never date one of them. You'll like them, you'll think you'll go. It just will never manifest. Only brunette girls forever.
So true. And you know who's blonde? Zenith. All right. So she used to be her party's healer.
Yes.
Which is interesting. And I think the small bit of characterization I always talk about, I think I've talked about in videos or whatever, is that I really like how happy she is when Rudy first casts magic and she finds out, because it's like her as a parent, she's like, yeah, he's gonna be like me, like he has an aptitude for magic and I like magic, and it kind of explains like, oh, she spent all this money on this expensive book for his birthday and all that because she really likes that he is good at magic and all that. Yeah, cute Zenith stuff. But that's it. Okay, so now let's go to the Citadel of Roa. So this is the second, second mini arc. We'll just call it that for now. So I guess I can do a recap, or you can go if you have any notes specifically you want to talk about.
No, do your recap.
Okay, so Rudy is going to be Eris's tutor. So they first meet, and then she slaps him. So he slaps her back, and then she beats the shit out of him, basically. What do you think about Eris, basically? Let's talk about Eris. We met her in this first episode.
Firstly, my first note is before this is I think the characterization of just tell me her name again, the dumb fucking cat girl.
Ghislaine. It's a normal name in real life. Yeah, Ghislaine. Yeah.
Elaine. Sounds like Elaine, which is Casca's fake name. So Elaine over here, Casca. Yep. Oh my god, she's kind of brown now. I'm racist.
Oh no.
Ghislaine over here.
Yep.
She doesn't. She's a big meathead too. All right, literally meat ass. We'll see that later.
Yep.
Muscle asses can be sexy. This one wasn't, but we're not up to that.
Mm-hmm.
For whatever reason, she reminds me a little bit of Revy. But that wasn't the point I was going to bring up. But if Jackie Bacon is listening to this right now, which he isn't, he's freaking out right now.
Oh, he might be. He's seen Mushoku Tensei.
Yeah. We're doing Black Lagoon next, by the way.
Right.
At some point in here, Paul's, because she's reading, she can't read, which is a little bit of a plot point. So Rudeus is reading Paul's letter out loud. It's funny. And then she like freaks out and says, "What?" And then he says, "It was a joke." And she goes, "Oh." and then she
Mm.
continues back to thing. That was very funny. I wrote that down. Oh, response to "It's a joke" was funny.
Yep.
And I thought she was very likable. Now, outside of this, she's kind of more generic. A lot of these characters are
Wow.
tropey, but I
Okay.
like them all. She's a little like it's like,
What is her
is she ever
genericism?
doing anything? Is she ever doing anything? She's just like strong and stuff, and like
That's
kind of
wild to me, Kyle.
meathead.
Because one of my big notes about, I love Ghislaine firstly, but one of my big notes about her is that you expect her to be a dumb, strong, hot one, basically. Like that's all she is. But she is genuinely a very engaged student who wants to learn to better herself because her
That is
life was
true.
she struggled so much for not having her education in her life, basically. And I think that's just really interesting. Like it just adds a
It's
second dimension to
okay,
her.
yeah.
And then on top of that, like she's
She's not.
also not a very like she kind of comes across as very inhumane when she decapitates those two people as well, and she's portrayed as kind of like she's not some moral bastion of like being a good knight or anything. She just killed these two people without thinking about it.
Yeah.
There's like multiple dimensions to her. I think she's very interesting, and she also gets better at math. Like she learns, and she's like trying to apply herself, and she gets that math question right in the market about like, oh, if I sell this here
Yeah.
for 3 and whatever. Really
Yeah, and
interesting.
Eris does.
Yeah.
Eris having this is such a little detail, but for that market scene where she has like a method for getting it wrong, and the method doesn't make any sense. I'm like, I feel like I was in math class a million times and I
True.
did exactly that, and everybody was like, "What the fuck are you talking about?" It's like, yeah, so relatable now.
Mm-hmm.
On the what was her name again?
Ghislaine.
Ghislaine.
Yep.
Well, I'm gonna think of Elaine all the time now, so I probably
Right.
got the name down pat. No biggie.
Nice.
I guess I would just say she's uninteresting then, because she's not generic after you explained some things. I was like, yeah, I guess that's true.
Cool.
I don't know. There was points where I was like, now this, you could totally say this applies to every other character even more so, but I was like, oh, I kind of seen this character before. But
Mm-hmm.
again, that's kind of true for all of them, I guess. Especially Eris, who I'm about to say is obviously the best character in the show because she's mean.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah,
Okay, yeah. Fair. That's a fair thing to
I
have.
guess
We'll
like
we'll see how this develops, if anything, if it does at all.
I think she's fine. I think it's cool when she springs into action and fights. Oh,
True.
originally my point with bringing up Revy was going to be like, but she's nowhere near as good as a character, right? She kind of sucks. Revy's the best.
Right.
Uh,
Well, she is a side
so he's
character of a
right, yeah.
side character in Mushoku Tensei. Yeah.
Yeah, and Revy's actually also the protagonist or something.
Right.
What a dumb fucking point. What an untrue point to make in a video.
Yeah. Who would make that point? Jesus.
But besides that, my next note here is I like Rudy's voice. What a note.
Nice. Wait, which voice?
No, not the pedophile one, the little kid one.
Right. True.
I feel like a lot of the voices in this are familiar. I feel like the grandfather is definitely somebody in Vinland Saga.
Ooh, I honestly don't. The only one I know is that Rudeus's adult voice is like a massive. Like he's. I'm pretty sure he's Joseph Joestar from JoJo's and
Yeah, he
Indoki obviously
sounds
from Gintama
familiar.
and a bunch of other stuff. He's like a massive voice actor.
Eris's voice definitely sounds familiar, etc., etc. Roxy's too. Zenith too. They all, all these fucking.
I'm sure there is.
All
I'm
these
sure they're
fucking
all
people
people.
sound the same.
Uh-oh.
Voice actors, I mean. Just like the dub people. We say that about the white voice actors too, everybody.
True.
Um, the the rest of the notes aren't really. The next note is closing his eyes, thinking back to his old life, and the rain motif was cool. I think at some point he has to think back to his old life, and it's like the introduction instead of the first episode of the show where it's raining and stuff. And he's like, oh, he's thinking about dying, Lamau.
Yeah.
Oh, it's probably when he thinks he's gonna die at the end of this episode. What a great connector. And then I just have the word dere, and I was gonna bring up my funny anecdote
Yeah.
about looking up what that means, but I already did that.
Nice.
But I guess we got to talk more about the characters that are introduced here, right, EliteAri?
Mm-hmm. Sure.
So we already talked about Ghislaine, right?
Yep. You want
So
me
we
to list
got
characters?
Eris here.
Eris, yeah, go ahead.
She's mean. You almost think they're gonna do a subversion where she's gonna respect him after he slaps her back, but that doesn't happen.
Yep.
There is an interesting thing where like cucking her immediately by having her getting curb stomped. It feels like it should change. It should be like the big subversion of like, oh, you thought we were doing this character,
Mm-hmm.
but actually no. She's gonna get humbled. She's gonna have her mind rape Asuka moment now, but she doesn't. Um, it's like the most generic. It literally is like Asuka, but turned up a little bit and younger. But it's really good. I don't know. I feel like this character I will never not like, and it's just funny and
Mm,
interesting, especially when the dude is sort of wimpy, like Shinji. Lamau Evangelion invented all of this.
yeah,
It's just a fun dynamic to watch. Um,
very cool. I'm interested. That's good. Good to hear.
the I guess this develops much more so in the later episodes of like the she obviously likes him thing. This is something I famously try to retcon out of existence for Asuka's character in Evangelion. And in the rebuild movies, they make it much more explicit, and I get mad at that. Um, Even though it's so obviously the point that she has a crush on Shinji. That sucks. I hate when the aggressive girl actually likes the guy, EliteAri. Uh,
Mm,
they should actually hate them.
fair. So you think
Not really
Eris
fair.
likes
It's
Rudy?
probably good.
That is kind of
The
interesting.
problem with this ship is that it's almost like right now, if I didn't know better, I would bet like $1 million trillion that obviously is going to end up with Eris here,
Mm,
and that's like this is some unforgivable pedo shit if this happens.
right.
Um, but that's why I don't think it'll happen. But one of them might die or something. Oh, I could totally see he never gets laid and he sacrifices himself at the end of the story, and he has the line about how he died a virgin again, but he was the superhero good guy, so it's
Yeah.
different. Um, it's that old storytelling. Sex is actually bad and impure, and Luffy's a good
True.
guy because he's asexual, and Goku's a good guy because he's asexual. Except for those times he fucked,
Yep.
but
Off
we
screen.
don't think about that.
Yeah.
Yes. Um, but yeah. Eris good, obviously. Who would have thought I'd like the mean girl?
I was interested because
Because I'm a mean
I did
girl
know that you
user.
I know you like characters like this. But when I was watching, I was like, what's he gonna think about this? Like, is there some like, is she too over the top? Is she not over the top enough? Interesting. I'm glad you like her. I guess what's interesting about her is that her personality seems to come from Soros or Saros or whatever you want to call him. And he's
Oh, the
like
grandfather,
the
yeah.
grandfather. He's like the inspiration for, like, she looks up to him and gets her like personality from him and stuff. It was
The
interesting.
gra- the grandfather is a much more interesting character for what side I would come down on him. Now I do like him a lot.
Okay.
But there's like I guess I'm trying to connect him in my head to the Armstrong dude from Full Metal Alchemist that I hate.
Oh Jesus. All
But he's
right.
just sort of like a muscly dude.
Yeah, I don't see
And they're
any
not really that
similarity.
similar at all.
Yeah.
Um But I do hate that type of character, and it's like, oh, the very. I think if she didn't exist, I might not like him. Just like the overbearingly loud and emotional
Yeah.
older dude, I feel like that's a trope. But I feel like I like that trope, actually. I'm
Hmm.
trying to think.
Well, he also gets
What's another
serious at one point when
example?
he's like having sex with the beast person and Rudy walks in and they talk about the orb in the sky
Oh,
and
yeah, but I didn't
yeah.
like that.
Okay.
Because there is a thing. Oh, we didn't talk about the beast thing, about how they're clearly like slaves or whatever. And this is probably going to get addressed later. Because the like it's clearly fetishized, and again it's another thing of like, are we commenting on the fetishization of like certain minorities in society here, or are we just saying it's funny because we like to fuck cat girls on the internet now?
Hmm.
um it could be both. um but yeah, there's also like you're not allowed to fuck your maids. That's improper in
Hmm.
contemporaneous society. um who you
True.
have all this power over and are employee and they're your like employees potentially. It seems like Elaine over here is getting paid. Um,
Yep. She gets 2 gold a
doesn't
month.
seem like a lot. There's a shot where they're like watching Rudeus eat and she's like freaking out at like the
Hmm.
food, clearly indicating that maybe she doesn't get fed well, or maybe they have like little animal food for them or something. I feel
Hmm.
like this is definitely something that's going to get explored. Whereas the womanizing thing, I'm not sure if that's going to get explored further. I think this race thing might,
Right.
because we're definitely because initially when you meet the father, it's like, oh, this guy's kind of slimy, and then eventually it's like, oh, whatever, he's okay. He's just like a family dude. And then at the end where he's trying to like manipulate and so let's do this scheme thing, and then he's like offering his daughter up uh,
Hmm.
to be raped, basically to be in on her rape.
Yep.
Uh, it's like, he's not so good.
Mm.
And he's like part of the fetish thing.
Yeah, the whole family seems
So
to be. Yeah.
slave, animal thing, Lamau.
True. And Ghislaine is a animal person. And he kind of maybe
And
that
yeah.
implies why she dresses that way. Interesting. Maybe not.
Yeah. The another thing is like the dude that ends up being in on the kidnapping is so obviously out of place where it's like, oh, he's the
Oh,
bad
that's
guy.
so. Yeah, I also did think that. I forgot that it was him until I saw him and I was like, huh, there's something about this guy. That's funny. Um, okay. So Eris, Philip. We talked about the mother a little bit. I know your thoughts about her. Saros. Any other big things you remember from characters?
No.
Don't think so. Okay, those are the main ones here. Okay.
There's a dance teacher character.
True,
She's
Edna.
very
Yeah.
generic, old, nice girl.
Yep. That's
You
Eris's
know her name,
etiquette.
which indicates that she
Oh.
might be
Don't take
more
anything from
important
my.
later.
Maybe I'm being really intelligent and naming something that they don't become a character. I don't know.
Maybe.
Yeah, but she's the etiquette instructor for Eris, who teaches how to dance. Interesting. I like how she's like trying to negotiate lesson time with Rudeus and stuff. It's funny. It's like what teachers do in the back room of like their classes or whatever. I don't know. Anyway, so Rudy and Eris they get kidnapped. Eris gets attacked or curb stomped by the kidnapper. She promises to. Oh yeah, her promising to be quiet and then like breaking the promise. But then later on, when Rudy is like considering the offer, she like covers her mouth because she's like she doesn't want him to leave her. It's like a cute little character detail. I thought that was cool. Then Ghislaine comes in, saves the day by shattering the kidnapper's sword, like destroying that alley basically, and decapitating both of them.
Yeah.
And she's a
It
king
was
class
interesting.
swordsman. Yeah.
Yeah, in the power scaling thing, because I was like, Rudeus can do like a lightning thing. Like he could totally fuck up some kidnappers.
Mm,
And then it seemed like he couldn't. They were stronger than him, which was interesting. Because
yeah.
at that point, you don't really understand power scaling in the show at all. So you're like, yeah, Rudeus is like the strongest dude around.
Yeah.
He can fuck up anybody. And then the swordsman comes in and fucks him up real quick. And it's like, oh, well, there's clearly a difference here.
Yep. True. Um. Oh, so much. I can't say anything. Okay, it's the Rudy. I guess when he sees the dead bodies, that's like a big moment for him because he realizes that people can die. Like this is a real world. It's not some fantasy thing. Um.
Yeah, and he does contemplate like what happens if I die again, which was
Yeah.
interesting.
And I guess for me, when I'm
Again, I
watching
don't know
that,
what.
firstly, my first thought is like, oh, you've never seen anyone die, but you're in like this anime thing. But then he's from our world, and like no one, you don't. I bet you've never probably seen anyone die right in front of you, right? Like it's a fairly
No.
uncommon thing, yeah. So I guess it makes sense for him to be like Jesus in that moment.
The it's like that Berserk chapter that just came out where it was like, oh, the lack of violence, and then there was sudden violence.
Sure.
Right?
And that scene had some of the best animation of her like jumping down from the building top, and they animated basically that whole building. It was so cool to see it like move, man. Then her attack with the rainbow light thing, interesting. Okay.
Well, that means something.
Sure, okay. Rudy is hired as the tutor. We get a bunch of tutoring scenes in math, fighting, and magic, and apparently Kyle hates all the fighting scenes. They all look terrible to him, which is very funny to hear.
No, just one of them. The rest of them look pretty good.
Okay, that's good to hear. It is, yeah, it's like completely. There's so much Sakuga in this show, it's crazy. Like just small details of like hand movements and stuff. They put so much like detail into it. It's great. Yeah, we meet Soros, the person who Eris respects and models her personality on. We find out that the Boreas family has an affinity for beast people. They go to the market on their day off and they see a floating castle in the sky belonging to armored dragon king Perugius, one of the 3 heroes who beat the demon god Laplace alongside his 12 servants. The current year is 414 of the armored dragon calendar, so named after him, counting the years after the end of the Laplace conflict. So, yeah, interesting. So are you not interested in this plot stuff at all, or are you just you prefer the other stuff?
No, I'm sure I will be. It'll be
Okay.
fine.
Okay.
I think because I was tired with the first 2 episodes, I sort of gave up on keeping up with the lore stuff, and I was kind of mad that I didn't, and so I was fermenting this later, I guess.
Yes. Okay. Well, that's all the context you need, I guess, for now. Then dancing. Rudy and Eris, they practice dancing. Rudy wants to make sure Eris doesn't go on with her life and forever think, if only I'd tried harder back then. And then they dance together. So what do you think about that?
Oh, is this at the party, or are we just talking about them practicing?
Just
dancing?
everything. They were practicing, and then they did the actual party.
Well, they fuck up with this little fuckboy kid. Uh, uh, I don't know why we
True.
hated him, but we did. And then Rudeus jumps in, and he's fucking dumb slick back hair that was pissing me off.
Yeah.
But that's besides the point.
True. Yeah.
And they danced, and it was cute, I guess. It was okay, cute
Cool.
stuff.
Yeah, I agree.
Oh, the great gag where at first the grandfather gets dragged out. I don't remember what he was saying.
He's like, let's go to war.
And then the oh yeah, because I'm gonna put Rudeus on the throne because Paul's brother is a prick apparently.
Yep.
It's like, yeah, all of them fucking suck, but Rudeus is pretty good. That was great because yeah, that was a great gag, and because it was like a little bit of exposition too. Because I think earlier in the episode they exposited that there's like 4 branches or whatever, and over here or whatever the fuck, and they're not allowed to know that Rudeus is there, and that ties into his birthday shit or whatever. And then it's also the payoff for the mother being like unattentive, I guess. Throughout the whole thing, and her first explosion of any sort of emotion is her getting dragged out in the similar gag. It was great. It was like 2 payoffs to a gag that didn't need any payoffs.
Yep, absolutely.
To be funny, it was good.
I agree.
But yeah, her kids got taken away to the main. Now I thought this was the main family. The grandfather was like the ruler of the whole fucking kingdom or something. But it seems like
you want me to give you some context?
The main thing, I guess.
Okay, so they are in the Azura Kingdom, which is like a big, massive kingdom, basically. And before, I talked about Sharon Kingdom as like another. There's a bunch of kingdoms in this world. So the Azura Kingdom contains the Fitoa region, which is like a little region basically in Azura. And Buena Village, which is where Rudeus grew up, is in the Fitoa region. And
that's what the grandfather rules.
The grandfather is the head of the basically he's the landlord or whatever. He's like in charge of the Fitoa region basically. And he's at the Citadel of Roa, and Roa is like a city basically in Fitoa. So yeah, he's basically he's in charge of a small part of the Azura Kingdom. That's the context there. What were we saying? The 4 families and stuff. That's another thing I guess I should talk about, which is that Grey Rat is like the big family we're talking about here. Rudeus's full name is Rudeus Grey Rat. And Paul's full name
sounds like fucking Grey Worm, bro.
True, yes.
Except that was like the meaning slave name on purpose, and this one's not.
It's a grand family name of a dynasty or something here. So Paul Notos Grey Rat is Paul's full name.
Paul has a rat's tail. Holy fuck.
True. It's all coming together, isn't it? Oh my goodness. I actually don't know if that's a thing or not. But
I don't know if in Japan they have rat's tails. That sounds like a potentially Australian exclusive.
Actually, that's a good point. I have no idea. I'm sure they have some other name for it, probably. I can't imagine it being a rat's tail. So there's 4 families, and we've heard of 2 of them here. So Paul's brother, Palemon Notos Grey Rat, is the head of the Notos branch of the Grey Rat family. And then we've also got Soros, who seems to be the head of the Boreas branch of the Grey Rat family. So Eris, Boreas, Grey Rat, and
he's going to war to kill this fucking prick. It was great.
Yeah. So that's the context there for some lore stuff.
But there has to be one part that's in the most control, because they can decide that the kids are leaving this part to go to their part.
Yes. So they're taken at birth, basically, all of the branch families, and sent to the head to be raised. It's a bit ambiguous, I guess, at this point. They don't say they don't give many details on it, so we won't talk about it.
They copied Naruto. This show
maybe
sucks.
Maybe not.
Do they have to die in service of the main branch?
Who knows? I mean, I know, but
like
okay. So then, they dance. And afterwards, Rudeus gives his students magic wands, and Ghislaine gives Eris one of her gold rings or something. I thought that was really cute.
That was a cool gag where she's like, if she wants a present from you too, idiot, you gotta give her a present. And it's funny.
And she loves that present because she it's like I don't know how subtle it is, but obviously Eris loves fighting and adventure and stuff, and that's why she respects Ghislaine so much, and she wants to hear all her stories. And that ring, it probably means more to her than anything else because it's like all the stories it's been through.
And
Really
it's also
cute.
about wolves and stuff, and then she's about to tell a story about how
Yeah,
Paul raped her.
true.
Probably not. But
Yep.
yeah,
Or at least
and then
tricked
we
her
cut
into sex or
Paul
something.
fighting
Yeah.
wolves later, bro. Shit's crazy, and everything's connected.
Yeah. Well, and also it's connected in that next time in after that event, like Rudeus sees Eris sleeping next to him and he's about to like touch her, but then he sees the ring and and the wand that he gave her and is like, I shouldn't do this. This is bad. Yeah. Interesting.
Now this is all after we get the story about Ghislaine eating shit. Remember that story? That was crazy.
Yeah, it is. I really like that story. Yeah, because she ran out. She couldn't calculate the money to ration the food and all that, and yeah, great. So then Soros and Rudy, they see the red orb in the sky, and Soros gives like this interesting perspective where he's like, "Yeah, it's a good thing it's there," and then Rudy's like, "Why is it a good thing?" And it's like, "Well, I have to think that's the case because I'm actually just a bit worried about it, but I have to say it's a good thing." And I'm like, "Oh, it's really cool."
Yeah.
So yeah.
That was another slightly confusing thing. I was like, "What?" But yeah.
Sure, I can see how that would be consuming. Yeah, confusing. Okay. Any thoughts or move on?
Well, obviously this dumb fucking orb thing is going to be something. I'm sure I'm freaking out on the rewatch seeing it.
Right. Well, I mean, it collapsed.
That's the dude, bro.
It collapsed into the big blinding light at the end.
Oh yeah, because they were getting mana or something, and then we cut to like
Interesting.
3 people who they try to make you think is the dude. It's like the end of Vinland Saga season 1.
Oh, is that how you interpret it? Interesting.
Loser idiots.
I can see why
And
you
I'm
think.
like, this fucking plot is happening.
I want to say I don't think that's a similar thing, but I know what you mean.
Well, there's a bunch of new characters being introduced, and we're cutting all over the place. Now, obviously, in Vinland Saga, they were doing a meme thing, to pop some fucking manga viewers.
Yeah. I think this is very like a narrative
all those
choice
characters
here.
are going to be in the next 2 episodes minimum.
I guess we'll see.
They had pretty cool. They had pretty. I don't know if I want to.
Oh,
say cool,
we'll list them. We'll list who we saw.
Hair. But yeah.
Wait, what'd you say? Zigzag hair?
Yeah, this fucking idiot. The first one we see, he's looking all cool and stuff, but I don't want to call him cool because I think he's lame.
Sure, he's lame. We don't like him.
What? Yeah.
The guy with the dragons hate him. Okay, Kyle. So now we're talking about the final episode called Turning Point 1. What do you think about that title? Did you read it, or do you even read the title?
I thought it was, yes, I definitely read it, and I was like, oh, is it a part 1? But then I just read the next title, and it wasn't. So I was just like, oh, I assume there's another turning point later, and I assume the plot is starting.
Interesting. It's an interesting, yeah. I just like to hear what you think. Yeah, good. Okay.
I was thinking thoughts is what I was thinking.
That's good to hear. So Eris plans a surprise 10th birthday for Rudy.
Also, we've cut the last 2 episodes of my notes, by the way.
Oh, I thought you didn't have any. Go ahead, yeah.
Episode 6, LaPlante and the terms I'm not keeping track of. That's what my first note was.
Yeah.
So this was the point where I was going to ask you to clarify a bunch of things, so I didn't have to pay attention. And guess what? He already did it.
Yeah, LaPlante, a demon god. There was a fight. 3 heroes.
Yes, 414 years. I got it all right. There's 4 branches of the family.
And Perugius's castle just floats above Azura all the time. It's funny.
Yeah. Yes. And there's an orb, bro.
Yep, true.
And then I just have, does he go to call Cat Sword? Because I'm not fucking figuring out how to type out Ghislaine.
Yep. That's
Raiden. And we already talked about that. Yep. Episode 7, I have bad animation. Main eventor. Because they say that in wrestling shows, and they also didn't, because it's just main eventor.
Yep.
Nippon Shobu.
Whoa.
Something. Because I am us. That's what they say at the beginning of every wrestling match. Nice. Oh, and there was a point where, and somebody in this episode just says, wow. And I was like, it always catches you off guard when they're saying. For whatever reason, there's no Japanese word for party. It's just, there's some weird, these Japanese people. And then I just have Roxy reintroductions, which we already talked about. The prince got a little fucking bowl cut, and I want to kill him. But he's kind of funny.
True. He gets set on fire twice.
He reminds me of Helmeppo from One Piece Chapter 2. You didn't get that far, but he's in Chapter 2.
Maybe one day.
Maybe one day. Hopefully not. Fuck One Piece, you know?
True. Okay.
But yeah, you're on 8. I still got
Yeah.
8 notes, but we're
We've
not up to
we've
that yet.
covered a little bit of this. So Eris plans a surprise 10th birthday for Rudy. Soros and Hilda get emotional and they want to go to war for Rudy. Eris gives him the staff, Aquahardia, made by the greatest staff maker in Azura.
Why
Which
did
is like
they self-awaredly make fun of the name of the staff? I was like, oh, that's kind of cool. And he was like, kind of lame name, bro. And I was like, all right, fuck you, Rudeus, you
true,
dumb
yeah.
cunt.
Well, to him, it probably
It's
reminds
blue.
him of like his old life, and he's like, "Oh, like this is like an MMO kind of like."
Yeah, obviously that was
Yeah,
a reference. EliteAri. I got
yeah.
that far.
Hey, I don't know what level you're on here, right? That's so you're like on a level 3 right now. Okay, cool.
Uh, I'm a layer 4.
Sure, right. Um, yeah, that stuff is crazy. Like when he uses it right at the end, and it like he tries to do a little water ball, and it creates a giant water ball, and it's like tied in with the
Yeah, and
mana
you're like,
stuff, and I'm like, "Oh
is
my
he
god, what's
actually?
going on here?"
There was clever construction of that scene of like I think you get the reaction shots of all these mysterious characters as well as
mm,
Roxy, etc. And then you cut to him doing it. So we like, do we just do a flashback to
mm.
show that he actually is the one doing it? And then he does a big thing. And you're like, oh, it is, but then it isn't. So yeah, that
Yeah,
was clever.
really interesting. Yeah,
Um,
especially because it starts off with Roxy's perspective, and she's like, "Oh, I hope Rudeus like what's going on there with Rudeus."
yeah,
Yeah,
that also tempers your
so great.
expectations.
Yep. Um, we've
Finish
already
your
talked
recap.
about quite a bit of this stuff. So after the party, Philip sits down with Rudeus and proposes that he marry Eris and become the head of the Boreas family. Rudeus rejects the proposal,
Oh,
but yep, go.
there was this is the, well, finish your fucking marriage
So
shit. It's
Rudeus
about to finish.
rejects the proposal, but goes to his room and finds Eris sitting in his bed on his bed.
Yes, and then obviously Lamaui's horny, so he's not thinking.
Wait, you want me to? I have notes.
Um,
So you want me to continue on that?
just like Paul. No, 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 no.
Okay, okay.
This oh, there was something else I was watching or something recently where, maybe it was just Berserk and it was Adonis who is the kid gets kills and Charlotte. Um, I feel like there's a very interesting dynamic that could be written about, but my point is that none of these shows ever do it. Where it's like the people who kind of know each other who are then like betrothed to each other and how their relationship, especially as like awkward like 14-year-olds, how and they're not even that old in this show, right? We got pedo say over here. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and how their relationship would be affected by being betrothed to each other. I think that would be a very interesting dynamic to explore, where
Mm.
it's like two 14-year-olds that maybe they were friends when they were like 8, but now that they're like they gotten older and they've like even if they're living in like the same castle, I guess I would think about this in a Game of Thrones context too, where it'd be like, what is it like when you're like betrothed to a person?
Mm.
Um, and especially when you're like a dumb, especially early teenager. I think that's a very interesting dynamic. And this show actually is the closest to it, where they've sort of been friends and they're obviously setting up this as a love interest. I think there's even a line where Rudeus is like calling her a love interest for him, um, in a meta sense.
Mm.
So yeah, it's kind of interesting of like,
Yeah.
because when they say the marriage thing, it's almost like a, yeah, of course they're getting married. That's where this is going. But then you remember 35-year-old and you're like, oh,
Mm.
pedo say again. But
Yeah.
yeah, what an interesting dynamic that could be. Um,
True.
I don't think they're going to actually do that. They're just going to do the same thing we do in all these animes, which is have them have moments every once in a while. Though, again, 35, so we're probably subverting this somehow. You'll have to see. But yes, what an interesting dynamic that could be done.
Mm-hmm. True.
Crazy.
So yeah, I guess the thing that interests me about this dynamic is the fact that initially when Rudy goes to his room and he sees Eris there, he kind of thinks that not Paul, Jesus, Philip set
Yeah.
this up, and he's like, oh, I guess he sent her here for this before they had their conversation. But what's interesting is that he has this moment, he like gets excited, touches her, she hits him, she runs away. Then he feels like this, he has an immense sense of guilt and feels really bad about it because he realizes that she wasn't there because of Paul, but because she probably felt that he was lonely on his birthday.
Oh, I didn't even think about that.
Yeah. Well, I think it's very clear in the light novel. Maybe I'm dragging from that. But he doesn't mention it, and is like, oh, she probably was doing all these things and trying to keep me company so that I wouldn't feel sad that my family couldn't be here and I'm all alone and all that. Which just makes him
I
feel
thought
even
that was
worse.
bullshit
And
too.
interesting. Okay.
But it definitely isn't now that you lay it out like that. But
Mm.
what I thought, it's like the cute moment where when you're in a potentially budding relationship EliteAri. You know, again, I'm a master at this stuff.
Yes.
And you sort of have an awkward fuck up, but and then you freak the fuck out and you have like separation, but then you like immediately realize that it was a mutual fuck up and you both sort of reconcile very quickly. I feel like these little moments happen all the time, and it was like, oh, it's just like that very relatable moment that happens all the time when you're an awkward teenager and you're like, I don't know, I can't think of an example. Like I haven't been able to do all today.
True.
But it was just like, oh, it's the moment. It was such a funny iteration of it too, where she's like comes back through the door and she's like, and it's very clearly mutual on her end. But obviously the Paul thing probably leans into it, and yeah, you fucked up first.
I did, and I always do. Yeah, Paul and Philip, I always mix. I guess they're brothers, so yeah.
Yeah, P's. Even though the P's are very.
Oh my god, you're right. Philip, Paul, and Palemon. I guess, and we'll see later on. That's
Who's Palemon?
He was the head of the Notos family. He's another brother of Paul's.
Oh, spoiler alert! Haven't got.
No, we already got
yet.
this. No, we.
No.
Oh my god! No, we have. We absolutely have. Otherwise, I wouldn't have said it. I think Sora says it. Yeah, we definitely do get it. Don't worry.
Well, I know his name, and I already forgot it, and now I'm spoiled forever. EliteAri, Polopolis, or whatever the fuck.
True.
He said.
Starts with a P.
I bet he's a nice guy or something. I should stop expecting subversions. I think.
Yeah.
So maybe
there's no subversions.
Saint Firepunch.
Yeah.
Now that was a funny indication that there were subversions.
Yeah, or maybe I'm on the 5th level, Kyle. All right.
No, there's only 4 layers, right? There's the 3 layers that exist, and then me on the 4th one. There ain't no 5th. You're on layer 1, Elite. Are you like Mushoku Tensei?
True. Yeah, I love the plot, Kyle. Oh my god, that's what I just love about Mushoku Tensei.
Boring.
I guess I haven't said what I like about it. We'll talk about what I like about Mushoku Tensei when we get to the end of season 1. Like just to talk about it as a whole.
There better be more if impregnating the maid drama, all right? That was the best. That was the peak of the show.
Right.
And now we're getting into action plots. Kill me now.
Yep. True. Okay. Yeah, so we get that Paul Rudy. Not Paul Rudy. We get that Eris Rudy scene. Should I talk? Let me think. Rudy. We'll talk about this one another day. So we then flash to a bunch of different perspectives, all seeing the mana pooling in the Azura Kingdom. So we get Roxy or whatever. Then we get a man walking through a dragon-infested mountain range with scaled eyes, basically.
With his zigzag hair.
Yeah. So that was really good animation actually as well. When when the dragons are flying around, they land right in front of him, and just seeing the scale of the dragon as well, right in his face. That's like a really subtle. Like, it looks so good, that scene, is what I would say. But yeah, that's that man you hate.
Well, I didn't notice it too much. I was
cool.
thinking
maybe one day on a rewatch, you'll be like, oh, wow.
Yes, I thought it kind of looked like a pterodactyl from Dragon Ball Z initially.
It is interesting, because it's not I think it's a bit unclear whether it's a dragon. I think it's called a wyvern or something. I think it depends on the translation you're using. A wyvern, is that what it's meant to be?
Wyverns can't fly, EliteAri. Do you know nothing?
Well, that's the thing. That's why it's ambiguous. I did look this up at one point.
But it does have its little like hand thingies, like a pterodactyl.
Yeah, I do know what you mean, which is why it makes it feel like not really a dragon. But one subtle thing, which you don't need to worry about this, but early on they mentioned the red dragon.
Wait, wyverns fly? They can't breathe fire, you idiot! Why did you say otherwise?
God, I got no idea what I'm saying. I don't know any of these things.
That was me correcting myself and blaming it on you.
Oh, okay. I thought you were saying I said they breathe fire or something. I got no idea. There's terms for dragons. I don't care about fantasy. I don't know nothing about Lord of the Rings or whatever. They're one of those, and they're red, and they're in the Red Dragon Mountains. It seems like, which is something mentioned earlier. Small details that don't matter, but build up to this nice, fun rewatch where you hear all these little details. All right, meet that man with the dragons. We also meet a girl with pink hair claiming to be the great emperor of the demon world, Kishirika Kishirisu. What do you think about her?
And then she's telling her army to advance, but it's just her, Lamau.
True. Yeah.
I've definitely seen this character before somewhere.
It's a very iconic design.
I'm making fun of the show for being bad.
Yeah. I thought you'd seen the actual character.
Yeah.
Interesting.
No. I'm saying
she's like a trope, I guess.
I've seen this archetype before.
Yeah.
She's kind of annoying.
Yep, loud.
But maybe she'll grow on me.
Loud, arrogant, I don't know, stuff like that.
No, those would be things I like. Goofy, I think, is what I don't like.
Sure. Okay. We also meet...
She'll be fine.
A man in the sky, armored dragon king Perugius, suggesting. Whoa, wait, what is this suggesting?
Bro, he summons the dude.
Okay,
He
no,
teleports. He's right
sorry,
there.
he summons him. That guy is so cool. The sound effects with him summoning and everything, man, it's so cool. And he suggests
kind of like in Naruto where you teleport and stuff.
True, maybe one day I'll understand that.
Flying Raijin Jutsu.
Yes, Armored Dragon King Perugius, his dialogue is basically like maybe someone is trying to undo the seal on Demon God Laplace. And he says, this manner resembles the light of summoning.
He is trying to do something. So it was like a he or something.
Right. So yep.
There was a pronoun in there.
That's Armored Dragon King Perugius.
Because initially you think obviously it's the first dude we cut to. Because he's the first dude we cut to. But then it's pretty evidently not, I think. Maybe it could be, but I think it's not. And then it's just like, oh, all these girls are going to, all these guys, all these characters are going to investigate this one thing. And I assume it's a different character altogether. Okay. So we'll see.
Yeah, interesting. Another really strange thing, which doesn't really matter, so I'll mention it, is that in the light novel we also get another character's perspective, but for some reason I have no idea why they didn't include it in the anime. But
are they in the next episode?
I'm not going to say anything, but for some reason they didn't include this. Yeah. And if anyone's read the light novel, they probably know what I'm talking about. So yeah, my one note on this kind of like scene is that this is the point where I guess similar to you, well, not similar to you. It seems like you were waiting for the plot to happen or something. For me at this point, I just realized that Mushoku Tensei is probably going to be a larger story than I was expecting. Like at this point, I was like, okay, so it's about Rudeus and his like little happy family upbringing stuff going on here, and like getting a job and all that. But then when this scene happened, I'm like, okay, so there's like a lot of characters and it's interesting. That was what I first thought when I saw this. But,
it is a lot of characters, but I would say it does feel grander than I expected, though obviously I know there is some sort of a grander plot because of the videos I watch. But I did assume it was small a little bit. I don't know, that's the vibe I got from listening to the story about the old lady who's a evil good guy.
Yep.
Where it'd be like Rudeus kind of traveling around, I guess. I don't know. But it seems like there's like a world plot happening here. Do we cut back home after this and we're waiting to get there, or did you skip over it like a hack?
I think I did skip over it. So I guess before this scene, you do see Paul fighting the monsters that are blocking his way to get to Rudeus's Roa.
He's in armor and stuff. It's pretty cool.
True, yeah.
But he's with some
and it's really interesting that the monsters are sensing something going on before the humans like notice the mana pulling or anything. I thought that was a really cool detail I'd never picked up on. Then we get the family stuff. We see the siblings have grown up. I guess they're half siblings or something. Sylphie in their life, seemingly happy now, and
the other girl's a slave. She's already a maid, and she's like 3 years old. That was sad, but it was played as funny.
Yeah, it is kind of subtly sad, isn't it? It's a funny, anyway.
Especially when earlier, what's the fucking maid's name?
Lilia.
Lillian? What was
Lilia?
Lilia. Yeah, whatever. She sucks.
True.
No, she's alright. Oh, she has like a line of like, "Oh, you will serve Master Rudeus forever" or something as debt repayment. Oh, yeah. Well, that sucks. Should have aborted that kid. What the fuck?
True. I forgot about that. But
so that ties into seeing her being a maid.
Yeah, that's so
She was cute and upbeat, and the other one was a big fucking pussy.
Yeah, she cried, right? I think. Oh no, did she cry? Yeah, man, that's so funny. Those two siblings.
Yeah, but and Sylphie comes over and there's like mention that she was like really grumpy for a little while and now she's fine. And she seems to like the maid's daughter more, which is interesting.
Interesting.
We'll have more of a relationship with it.
Yeah. It's just interesting how Sylphie seems to be a part of this family, just like helping out and kind of visiting and stuff, and she's not being bullied anymore. It's really cool. So then the final scene is basically Almanthe the Radiant appears and fights Sword King Ghislaine, these fancy titles, and a blinding light hits the earth and consumes Ghislaine, Eris, and Rudy. So I thought this scene is probably I think the Cumulonimbus stuff is probably the best animated, but this is a really well animated scene, and just in terms of the sound effects and everything, it looks so good. I could rewatch this scene a million times. Yeah, What do you
Yeah,
think?
well, that was lame. But there is a cool part where they like they're having a misunderstanding, and like Ghislaine explains her rank or something, and then
Yeah.
the other dude just immediately believes her. That was pretty cool.
Yep.
It's like, oh, there's like a mutual respect about being
A
king level
sword
or whatever
king.
the fuck
Yeah.
she said. Yeah. That was pretty sick, bro.
Oh, I guess she doesn't. She
Um,
mentioned she's training under, or she trained under Sword God
yeah,
Galfarian.
she mentioned her trainer, and I was like, oh, that's gonna be something eventually.
Sure. Every
Uh,
detail will
I
come
already
back.
forgot
Don't
it.
worry. Yeah.
Um, but yeah, fuck, there was something else I wanted to say. Oh wait, a part of this was like, oh, they all got teleported to someplace else. That's what the light means, and I was like, ugh,
Oh, I
which
thought you
is
were
the
talking about
exact same feeling.
the guy who teleports. The what's his name? Almanthe.
No, no.
Okay.
Um, which was the exact same sort of feeling I got at the end of episode 4, where it's like, oh, he's on the thing, he's on the, what do you call it, a fucking chariot or some shit,
Mm,
going away. I'm like, ugh, we're going to a different place now. This
right.
sucks. I was liking where we were, so that's why I was like, ugh.
So you
But
think this is
Roxy's gonna be there
teleporting
next
them, or
episode.
you think
That's
it's
cool.
narratively changing the focus? What do you think?
No, I thought it was literally teleporting them until you just said that.
Right.
So,
What makes you think it's teleporting?
um, because they all got sucked into a white light. They're all going to a
Oh, okay,
different world
sure.
or some shit again.
Okay,
And
interesting.
it's going to be just the three of them, because the three of them journeyed off, and then it was like, oh, why are we coming out of here? So you could do your spell. And I was like, oh, what a convenient way to get rid of all of our other interesting characters and just focus on these three. Um,
Yeah,
but yeah,
interesting.
that's probably still happening. I don't know. But Roxy's there, so that'll be cool.
Cool. All
And
right.
these new losers.
Wait, what do you mean Roxy's
Wait, oh,
there?
my notes. Oh, she's in the thumbnail for the next one.
Oh, the episode. Okay, I thought you meant she was at the field or something. What? Okay, go ahead. Your notes.
There's a toy car, bro. Dot point.
True. He has a
Set
lot
up
of
and stuff.
stone statues and stuff as well.
Yeah, he's making them, all right? Set up and stuff. That's for the stuff we just talked about.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have to get through the first 8 episodes for the show to get good? 2 question marks.
True.
I brought that up at the beginning. I was gonna send you that note out of
Oh my
context
god.
and to make you mad, but I
Yeah.
forgot. That would have been a funny
I want to
gag.
say, I guess I haven't said this, but I love Mushoku Tensei from the beginning. All right, I'll say that now. I don't need to wait for this 8 episode nonsense. I like it right from the start.
Yeah, well, the first 12 episodes are the only good part of Steins Gate. The rest of it sucks when that fucking shit ass plot starts.
Right.
Boring.
True.
So Mishoku Tensei sucks from this point on, is what I'm assuming.
Yeah, good point. Yeah, I agree. It's terrible. Drops off after volume 2. Okay, any more notes, or should I go through my other stuff?
I'm done.
All right, I have 2 questions for you. Apparently, I'd say which of these 2 storylines have you liked better, or are they just like one continuous storyline? Like we got the family village stuff, and we got like the Eris Roa stuff.
So I watched the last 3 episodes today, I think. And I
Okay.
think one of them was a slog. I can't remember which one it is. So
Mm-hmm.
maybe it was 6. And I guess the first 4, I didn't think any of them were slogs. So I
Yep.
guess the first 4 episodes win.
Cool.
But I kind of like
Alright.
the second 4 episodes better.
So it's all great. That's what I'm hearing.
Make that
Okay.
with me. It's all the fucking same, I guess.
Sure, it's all one story. Oh, my other question was just going to be, what do you think happens next, basically? But you've kind of said you think they're... Wait, clarify what you think is going to happen, like, next episode, since apparently, Roxy might be there. What do you think? What's, like, a bold prediction?
Well, now that you say that, I'm thinking this Roxy thing might be like well, there's another idiot there with blue hair, so it could be somebody else. But she's also in the thumbnail for episode 11. So
Oh,
they
my
can't be
goodness.
gone for too long. I assumed that they were like all getting teleported to basically this big fucking mana thing is going to transport them all to a battle arena, and we're going to have a fucking tournament arc or something.
Mm,
Something like that. We're getting them all I made that up on the spot. But they're getting teleported to somewhere to do some sort of a trial that they're going to be stuck in for an episode or something, and they're going to break out, and then they're going to be
right.
like, "Who did that to us?" And he might show up at the end for the cliffhanger, and then the next one we get a fucking explanation or something. We're
Cool.
separating them just like we set, basically, so we could split it, just like we split episodes, the first 4 to this 4, and now it's been 4 episodes, and we're splitting it again.
Right. Okay. Cool.
Outside of that, I was thinking about this because I knew this question was coming, like, what's going to happen next? I have no fucking idea what's like any of the point of this stuff is.
Mm-hmm.
Like the disc thing with the mana. I have no idea what we're doing. I assume this is where the more overarching plots begin. Somehow the family stuff and warring states or something is going to get brought in. Something's got to happen to the family house to fuck it up, so we can get that Paul
Mm-hmm.
scene from that EliteAri video
Right.
later. I feel like you definitely said that was in episode 20 something, but I have no idea.
Mm-hmm. Very interesting. I love hearing this. Okay. All right. Let me
test.
Yeah, let me look
Guinea
through my
pig.
notes here. All
EliteAri.
right. So Ghislaine, she reveals under her eye patch she actually had an eye there. It was funny. We
Oh yeah,
got
that was cool. No, that was cool because it was like a Sharingan thing. She had like a
like a green glowing eye.
detecting
Yeah.
eye underneath it. Just fucking superpowers and shit.
Yep. What have I got for Eris? Spoiled rich girl. Talked about her Ghislaine stuff. Advanced rank sword. That's one small like Eris thing is I thought the day when they went out to the market and she was wearing like a fancy outfit, I thought that was very adorable. I don't know why. It's kind of like maybe it looks a bit big on her or something. And
It didn't seem any fancier than anything she had been wearing. I didn't get that at all. I
really,
was like, is it sexy or
maybe
something?
no, maybe because it was like winter clothing or something. It was like a bit more like I don't know, like a thicker jacket or something. It looked cute. Is basically what I was thinking. What else? I wrote a note saying there's a cute character moment where, and then I ended the note there, so I got no idea. The 3 languages: Beast God, Battle God. Apparently, Battle God is similar to human, is what he said as well. Was interesting. And Demon God, which is very difficult to learn. Dance scene.
Just like demons are hard to understand when he has to prove to everybody that Sylphie is just a normal person, even though she's a demon. Well, thematically connected.
Classic Sylphie.
And for Shadow.
It's cute how this is cute where when it's like when they're organizing Rudeus's 10th birthday, it's funny how even all the servants seem to know him, and it's like that one servant when Eris is doing the thing, and the servant's like, "This is Rudeus, he might not get emotional about it."
Yes, that one line exactly was what I was thinking of. That was a great little bit of characterization of like the effect he has on the people here.
Yeah.
And you sort of get that with the dancing teacher too. That was cool.
Yeah. And I get another small detail is how when Eris asks him like, "Oh, I got a surprise. What do you think it is?" and he like guesses too highly, and he's like, "Oh, my parents." And then like she gets disappointed because it's like, oh, like
because he's trying to cry there and everything to do what he thinks is supposed to happen and be surprised.
Yep.
Yeah, and then he fucks up with the parents thing. That was cute.
Yep. Oh, and then I just wrote Norn and Aisha have grown up. It's very adorable. Yeah. That's my notes. My other stuff, so I've got light novel. I have one question for you, actually. I said, I guess we've already talked about this, but I said, who are your favorite characters? Do any stand out? Do you hate any of them, basically?
I don't think, I said Eris was my favorite, but he's just the trope I like the best. I don't know if any of them...
We're very
early
days.
I'm not super into any of them.
Yep.
Not yet.
Yeah, cool.
We'll see.
I'm sure we'll see more of them. We'll meet new characters. Okay. So I have miscellaneous notes and light novel. Yeah, maybe they will. And then light novel comparisons as well. Okay, miscellaneous notes. The money is interesting. One copper piece is 1 apple. 1 gold piece is like 1,000 Australian dollars. Rudy gets paid 2 silver a month. Ghislaine gets paid 2 gold. We talked about the OP and ED. Soundtrack. I love the soundtrack. It's not too on the nose about like being like an RPG setting or anything. which some like Slime does. And anyway, they get languages for the anime. Like they're speaking. I love Slime. It's one of my 10 out of 10s. I actually rated it higher than Mushoku Tensei, but I think Mushoku Tensei will probably a 10 after this rewatch.
Okay.
The story.
That's another thing they did on content. I think they liked Slime much more than Mushoku Tensei though.
That's crazy. For people who aren't.
Because I was comparing it to Slime in my head because I remember much more about them talking about that because they did like
they are night and day. They're like not even. They're so different. God.
Yeah.
Yeah. I like Slime for a completely different reason than I like Mushoku Tensei. It's not even comparable.
Because the Slime one is the one that has other isekai characters, right?
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's just like there's no like it's he's immediately like a god of the world basically. It's a very different kind of story.
Yeah, I remember hearing that.
So what is there? Transition between seasons is cool. Like, yeah, we get a lot of establishing shots we mentioned. So light novel comparisons. In one thing that the biggest probably comparison is that in the light novel it feels like Rudy's like past self voice dominates. Like it feels like he is the narrator the entire time because you obviously don't have voice actors or anything. Whereas in the anime you have that clear distinction.
In first person?
Yeah, it is. It's like you're hearing it from inside Rudy's head. So that's a very different thing. Obviously, the light novel has like so many more details and character perspectives. Like, I get a big thing is that you get specific point of view chapters for particular characters. Like, you get Paul chapters. You get one particular Zenith chapter that was cut out. That was one of my favorites from light novel 1. That was like her talking. Like Rudy was looking after Norn and Aisha basically, and it's like a point of view of Zenith seeing Rudy look after them and like talking to Rudy and having a cute like mother-son moment there. What else? One thing you mentioned earlier is about how the anime sometimes makes light of certain situations that probably shouldn't be like made fun of or anything. That's a very different thing in the light novel because obviously in the light novel you're setting your own tone when you're reading it. There are no like comedy music or like comedy voice acting or anything. So you can interpret it however you want. For instance, like the bedroom scene with Rudy and Eris. There's like goofy music and like he takes off his clothing really fast and everything, and it's like really comedic. Whereas when I'm reading in the light novel, I don't think of it comedically at all. I'm just like, oh, what is Rudy doing here? You know, so interesting. Rudy is also his internal monologue in the light novel is almost feels omnipresent. Like it always feels like you're seeing him, like you're seeing his internal voice basically the entire time. Just like as a character, he feels like he's always everywhere in the story, not so much in the anime. Anime is way faster paced, and we skipped the Sylphie dad scene, which I also talked about. So there we go, light novel comparisons.
Crazy.
That's it, I think. Unless you got anything else to talk about for first 8 episodes.
Not that I can think of.
All right, I guess we should say that for next time we will be going up to episode 15. So what's that? 7 episodes, I think.
Okay.
Yeah.
So something happens in 15 because we're not going to 16, even though it makes mathematical sense.
Sure. Yeah, we'll see.
Shake my head.
I might also change my mind. We'll see, but I'm pretty sure it'll be 15. But yeah. So I hope everyone enjoyed this. We'll see.
You know what sucks?
What sucks?
Is that I'm not really motivated to watch the next one because I'm dreading plot. I just got to get through it right, EliteAri, and I'll think it's great.
Yeah, I think you might be surprised positively or negatively. I guess we'll see.
No plot.
Yeah, we'll see what happens with that blinding light that consumed them. Or maybe we'll go on a tangent and see another story. Who knows? But yeah, thank you everyone for watching, and see you probably next week or something. I don't know. Whenever I upload this, probably a week later than next one. See you.